Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rewind, episode number 3 for Tuesday, August 6th, 2024. My name is Marty Sleeve, and I am joined by Darren Mooney, Jack Packard, and producer Eric lurking in the shadows. We have an excellent show for you. I'm so excited for this one. A, Jack made a big spreadsheet. B,
it's awesome.
It's incredible. We get to talk about Summer Blockbusters, which is a topic near and dear to my heart. C, that will revolve around Deadpool Wolverine, which will have some Deadpool Wolverine spoilers. Although if you're on Twitter, apparently just there's no laws anymore with directors and actors being like, yeah, here's a bootleg shot from the movie. We could just share this.
The spoiler embargo lifts on Monday. Like, this is the thing where I've had to actually explain this to older Irish film critics. This is a real, I'm in my mid-30s, but I'm still young by the standards of film criticism, where like one of the critics at the big Irish broadsheets was like, what is a spoiler embargo, Darren? And can you explain it to me? And I had to explain that now all the major studios have quote unquote spoiler embargoes, which is typically after the end of the second weekend, where it is suddenly absolutely fair game to talk about absolutely everything in the movie in the press. So, for example, with Deadpool Wolverine, if you go to, say, the Empire magazine website, they this morning or yesterday, because the spoiler embargo passed, ran a whole list of basically, here's every cameo in the movie, and here's what Ryan Reynolds has to say about it. Here, as you say, are all the clips of these behind the scenes, and you're like, you think maybe the studio could have given them stuff that wasn't camcorder footage from inside a cinema. But like I believe the first one was like Infinity War. Infinity War was the one where the Russos, it was hashtag Thanos demands your silence, I believe was the
I remember message that. Yeah.
That was very politely but firmly instilled in the critical audience at the critic screening of that. Like, the Disney executives, very polite, lovely people, but very clear, Thanos does in fact demand your silence.
That's one thing. Thanos wants balance in the world, and he wants you to not spoil movies.
And he wants you to stay off Twitter. Yeah,
he wants you to stay off Twitter. Those are the two big things. Honestly, Thanos might have been right on some of this thing. We should hear him out. So yeah, we're gonna be talking about the past, present, and future of Summer Blockbusters. Our thoughts on them, growing up from their inception to our childhoods to their the current state of them, and whether we're hopeful or quite worried about them going forward. And then, of course, talking about stuff we've been watching. I know Darren and I finished House of the Dragon, so we'll probably have a kind of a non-spoilerish talk about how we feel about season 2 and the fact that we are officially halfway done with the story, which I think is good. I'm glad they said it's going to be done after 4 seasons.
I mean, it was originally, they were kind of hinting at 3. Like, not to get into spoilers.
I think maybe it should have been done after 3.
Yeah. You're watching that finale and you're like, yeah, this is a real sense of like HBO had a request. And that request was more episodes.
And it was, what do we do with our most popular character? Let's put him in a haunted house for 8 episodes. See, now you're interested. Now Jack's like, maybe I will watch this. Man in a haunted house.
What if he has dreams about other parts of the franchise that people recognize? They'll love that, right?
You can point at the screen and be like, I remember her. She had 3 dragons. These characters only had 1.
That back of her head looks familiar because we're not paying that actor to appear.
Definitely not paying him.
Before we get deep into it, we were chatting before the podcast started, and Darren wanted me to share how the reason why I'm here. I'm supposed to be with Nick and with Jesse Schwab in Chicago shooting our Animal Well documentary right now, which is, by the way, Animal Well, one of the very few games I have 100%ed, a game I truly love. I was very, very excited to meet Billy, the solo dev, and like talk and shoot this documentary. But I rolled my ankle so hard last week, Wednesday, that I ended up in the ER. And I'm currently, like, my ankle right now is so bruised and swollen that it is unrecognizable as a foot. But in a bit of a fun irony as far as Darren is concerned, Marty wanted me to share the story to Darren. So I perform improv comedy for fun and on the weekends. We had a show last week, Wednesday, and the referee, because it's 2 teams of improvers, coming together. And the referee said, hey, there was this thing that we used to do back in the 90s to end every show. It's where we all pretend to do the thing that we've all seen on those infomercials, river dance. And for those of you who don't know, river dance, aka Irish dancing, is a very specialized way of dancing in which you do not move your torso or arms, but only your legs flail about all the time. Yes, it's very popular here in Wisconsin. Thank you, Eric. There is a river dance, and he's like, "Oh, we do this whole thing," and he choreographed a little maneuver. And I want to say it was on my like second leg kick that my ankle fell out beneath me. So I hurt myself river dancing. I apologize to Darren and Ireland in general.
So what you're saying is your dancing skill has much room for improvement.
Damn it.
I should extend sympathy. My first response should have been, "I'm sorry, Jack. I'm sorry that happened to you. I hope you feel better." But it was it was reflexive.
I landed Michael flatly.
Am I insane, or was there a Michael Flatley movie that we talked about on the
Wait,
what?
what?
Like a year or two ago?
Yeah, and if Eric can find a picture of this, I'll be very impressed. It's called Blackbird. It's basically him remaking like Casino Royale meets Casablanca, in which Michael Flatley is like a 60-year-old man who operates a gambling establishment in the Bahamas, and then there we go, look at that poster. Eric Roberts is in it as the villain, just to be sure, and Patrick Bergen as well. Like,
He's
it's
in
incredible.
everything.
Like, it is absolutely, it's the most, like, if you could get a glimpse inside the head of like a 60-year-old like wealthy Irishman, that is what Blackbird would be. There's a moment where like a beautiful 20-something-year-old woman in lingerie walks into his bedroom and he politely sends her back to her room because it would be improper. And you're like, that is such an Irish, that's the perfect Irish Catholic dad fantasy right there. This 20-year-old woman does want me, but I think I know what's best for her. She doesn't really.
You know what? I have a theory that every podcast has an anchor being, and Michael Flatley is ours.
Putting it out there. We're just putting it out there.
I'm just saying. I think the science checks out in Deadpool and Wolverine with anchor beings.
But yeah, so in any case, that is why I'm here with you, because I have trouble walking. So luckily, actually, Nick and Jesse are here staying with me so they can go grocery shopping for me, which is great. But
well, thanks.
Before I injured myself, I did get to see Deadpool Wolverine. It is number 2 as far as summer blockbusters are concerned, beat out handily by Inside Out 2.
So far, at least.
For now.
Oh, I mean, it's got quite a ways to go, I believe. Yeah. What is our box office at right now for Deadpool Wolverine?
It's about 850, 900 million. It's going to cross the billion next weekend. It's probably not going to get to 1.6. It'll have to settle for like the second highest grossing movie.
Which is tough for an R-rated movie to beat I don't know. Inside Out 2 was PG, I think, maybe PG-13.
Yeah. Maybe, but in any, family friendly Inside Out 2, But I was very excited to see Deadpool Wolverine, and then I came out of it feeling very, very empty. And then I listened to Darren, and I was like, "Oh, good, I'm not the only one."
Oh no, this is gonna be one of those. This is gonna be one of those episodes where all three of us don't like the thing everyone else likes.
Yeah. I feel really bad about not liking it, but I do not like it.
Yeah, this is the thing, and it's like I can already see the people being like, "Don't you guys hate fun?" As if we didn't spend 2.5 hours raving about Twisters 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Snooty Elise's critics, all they do is talk about Twisters.
Even though we're gonna go back to Jack's spreadsheet, I'm gonna point to so many dumb movies where like, "Oh my god, Armageddon! That shit was crazy."
Yeah,
it's incredible. The commentary in Armageddon, where like Ben Affleck talks about like how he's like, "Why are they sending guys who drill up to space? Wouldn't it be easier to train astronauts how to drill?" And Michael Bay's response was just, "Shut the fuck up, Affleck."
Right. I mean, to me, it was the exact same thing we talked about when we talked about Flash. Even a lot of stuff we talked about when we were talking about Spider-Man: No Way Home, where it was just so blatantly inside baseball that I couldn't enjoy myself while watching it. And here's the thing. The other thing is, the first couple of times you stab someone in the crotch, haha, very funny joke. The 18th time we are stabbing someone in the crotch, the joke's done at that point.
like this is obviously not like a big deal. This is not a huge criticism of like the movie, but it is one thing that really bugged me. One of the big climactic set pieces of this movie, without giving any context, so not really spoiler driven, but it's a bunch of people who are immortal fighting a bunch of people who are immortal, and all of them except one of them are dressed in variations of the same red and black costume. And it's a long take and it's a oneer, and it's just like, what is the point of this? This does not look visually interesting in any way, shape, or form. For most of the scene, they're like behind a bus. Like it's very clearly you have like a way of cheating that shot. Like it's really frustrating just on a basic craft level. And you mentioned like the stabbing in the crotch. Like obviously this is Deadpool and Wolverine. Obviously they're superheroes. They're inevitably going to do the thing where superheroes meet and they have a fight and then they learn to get along. This movie inexplicably does it twice, which is a really odd choice. Where it's like they have a fight, and it's like, nerds, you're gonna love this. Deadpool and Wolverine are finally fighting, and then it's like, okay, they fight, and I feel like I'm being very mean to Sean Levy. I should point out I loved Real Steel, which is the Rock'em Sock'em robot fighting movie he made with Hugh Jackman.
Why did you love Real Steel? What's wrong with it?
It's great. It's honestly great. It's like Rocky with robots.
You
didn't like Real Steel?
It's beautiful schlock. It's not like Rocky with robots. It's over the top with robots, which is even better.
Gotta get my son back.
And the only way I could do it is by fighting robot boxing,
arm wrestling. Oh yeah, no, I thought that was delightful schlock. Which, by the way, like Twisters, it's like I am here for delightful schlock. Even the first two Deadpools, like okay, yeah, we are having fun with the superhero genre. Everyone's having a good time because we're concentrating on like that story. Deadpool has a very in Deadpool 1 and 2, he has a very clear story that he gets to play around with. Here I feel like they forgot about the meat and it's all fixins.
Well, I mean, the thing about like the Deadpool 1 and 2, which I also quite enjoyed, is that like they are basically 80s action movies. Like the first one is quite literally a plot of this, special forces bounty hunter commando was left for dead by these rogue operatives who are arms dealing around the world. And oh no, they've kidnapped his wife and he's got to get her back. That is a Stallone and Schwarzenegger movie from the 80s. You just layer a bit of self-aware irony on top of it. You make a couple of jokey references. It is a classic action movie template. The second movie is, oh my God, I've got to keep this kid safe from a killer robot man sent back from the future to kill him. And along the way, we'll form an unlikely family unit, and that's just David Leitch, who is obviously the director of like Atomic Blonde and the Fall Guy, and a big 80s film fan in general, being like, yeah, I want to make Terminator 2 but with superheroes. And like those movies, like they get away with it because they're funny and they're goofy and they draw attention to what they're doing, so you can have the classic construction without having to like justify it or deflate it or whatever, right? Whereas I think my big problem with Deadpool and Wolverine is that like you don't have that like kernel of like actual emotional investment, where like this movie is ostensibly about the idea of Deadpool trying to get back to his family, and then this is like absolutely like no spoilers in like the loosest possible sense, first 15 minutes of the movie. It has that kind of problem I have with Picard season 3, which is you have spent like 2 movies now giving me a new cast of characters and asking me to invest in them. Like I've watched the first 2 Deadpool movies, and so I care about Dopinder, I care about Vanessa, I care about Negasonic Teenage Warhead, I care about I Will Die for Yukio, I like Colossus. Like you've built up a supporting cast around them. I even like Brolin as Thanos is great. Zazie Beetz as Domino is fun as well. And then what this movie does is it immediately jettisons all of them and is like, well, I hope you remember those X-Men movies from the early 2000s. I'm like, yeah, I do. I can watch them anytime I like on Disney Plus. Like, well, I know you're trapped in the cinema now, and this is what you're going to watch. It's like, it's really strange because I do like those first 2 Deadpool movies because there is that sense of like a supporting cast the movie has invested in and does honestly ask you to care about. And Deadpool 3 is like, Wade is trying to get back to those people, ostensibly in terms of plot, but the movie itself does not care about any of them. The movie's just like, well, they're a plot point. They're a wave to get from A to B and a justification for everything that's happening. And the actors maybe had like a day and a half on set, if at most.
No, the movie and Ryan Reynolds only cares about Hugh Jackman, not Wolverine, but Hugh Jackman. Yeah,
a huge Jackman.
A huge Jackman. That's one of the. That's I think a huge Jackman. That's one of the things with. Yeah, I was also on like No Way Home. It left me kind of cold, even though I do like all 3 iterations of those Spider-Men in their own movies. I like Spider-Man 1 and 2. I actually really like the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, and I like the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. But it's with that, and then with this, it feels like it is trying to make you care about things without putting any of the work in the text. It's trying to make you care about these things by pointing at the past. And to me, and I don't like leveling this term at art, it feels lazy. It feels like we're not going to do the work to have a script or have scenarios that are really going to make you care about these things. But remember that one movie that did? We'll just pull that in here. And that's what they try to do that here with its cameos, which I guess I feel like at this point we could probably talk spoilers about the movie. But it just something feels craven about pointing at bad movies that people do not like, that Fox abandoned, and being like, remember Elektra? Remember the Fantastic Four with Chris Evans? They're back. And I'm like, what are we supposed to glean from this? Because these were not good movies.
Yeah.
Like these were considered failures that were moved on from.
Yeah.
So like, what are we supposed to get from this?
Can I just like double down on this? Like, I feel bad. Maybe I shouldn't be so mean about the movie, but I really did have that like visceral reaction against it while I was watching it. I found it, and you say the word lazy is the word you don't like to use. Cynical is the word that I found myself thinking a lot.
Yeah.
Because like the description that keeps coming to mind is like Scott Mendelssohn's description of this as like watching a serial killer lovingly eulogize their victims. Where like you mentioned the idea of like the Fox movies that were bad and that like they're telling us that we loved and they're bringing back all the characters so we can celebrate them. Like what really galls is things like, say, and I guess you mentioned Elektra, so it's fair game to mention Channing Tatum's Gambit, right? Who shows up and it was like, I never got the chance to, I don't know, he never got to be a chance in his, he never got a chance to make his own movie.
I kind of like your Cajun accent. I liked where you were going with that.
No, I
pulled the ripcord pretty early, but I liked it.
Like Disney, I made the decision to cut that hard and fast. But it's like, this movie is like, oh man, isn't it sad that Channing Tatum, a man who cares so deeply about Gambit, and I believe he does care so deeply about Gambit, like I take him at his word. I think Levy, the director, has said he's never seen an actor happier to be in set and on costume than Tatum was, because Tatum had been pushing that uphill since 2011. But it's really weird to have like one of the biggest entertainment conglomerates on the planet be like, man, it's really sad that nobody ever made that Gambit movie, isn't it? Like, it's a real shame that Channing Tatum never got the chance to prove that he could be a good Gambit.
We're all trying to find the guys who did this.
If only there was somebody in this room who could have made that happen, and who had like, because the thing is, it wasn't Fox that killed Tatum's movie. It was Disney. Like, that's the thing. It's the reason that this stuff is being discontinued is, it's Disney. And look, I'm not saying the stuff shouldn't be discontinued. Reboots are a large part of the corporate landscape. Like these actors aren't going to continue to play the roles forever. They've already rebooted the X-Men once. I'm not saying I want to see Patrick Stewart playing the role until he's 120 or anything like that. What I am saying is I find disconcerting that, like, as an act of corporate, like, mergers and acquisitions, moving assets across a spreadsheet from one to another, doing the regular business of operating a film company and turning that into something that as an audience member I'm expected to feel sentimental about. Where it's like they have like the sequence where all these characters are consigned to the wasteland, but you consign them to the wasteland. Like, you don't get to make me feel sad that they're there when you put them there. You just like make me like think about why you put them there and are now asking me to pay to see the purgatory that you have confined them to. It's very strange. Sorry.
And also, like, anyone who watched The Flash and was upset about the inside baseball nature of Nicolas Cage's Superman
cameo?
Because of course, like, Nicolas Cage appears in Superman because of like the popularized story as told by Kevin Smith on working on the Tim Burton Superman movie, which is like so inside baseball that no one can get it. If you were upset at that, you cannot then watch Deadpool and not be upset by Channing Tatum being in this, because that's equally as inside baseball.
The Blade thing that has like levels to it of
my God.
Blade and Ryan Reynolds and Wesley Snipes making little goofs at each other because they famously did not get along on Blade Trinity, and then later Wesley Snipes being like, "There's only one Blade," to make goofs.
There's only ever going to be
movie that is currently in purgatory because they somehow can't figure out how to make a Mahershala Ali vampire movie work, which seems like that shouldn't be that difficult to make work.
And And like that gets back to the cynicism of that, right? Because that obviously all went through Disney. Like, there's no way that Kevin Feige, like, they snuck that line into the movie. Like, Kevin Feige saw that and saw like Wesley Snipes go, "There's only ever going to be one Blade," and was like, "Yep, that seems like a good thing to put in this movie." And you're imagining like Mahershala Ali like sitting down, watching like Deadpool versus Wolverine on its opening weekend with a bag of popcorn. Like at the moment that happens, throwing it down, go, "Fuck this," and just walking out of the cinema. Because the story is, at least according to the Hollywood Reporter or Variety, is that like it's Mahershala Ali who is pushing this thing forward, and it's Marvel that is just not taking action. So it does feel like weirdly passive aggressive again for the studio that is the problem with this, to be like, man, it's a real shame nobody can make a Blade movie. We're really trying to figure out.
To me, this is even worse than passive aggressive. This is something I pushed out as a joke on Twitter or the Blue Sky or whatever, which is like, when you watch a movie that is arguably very bad and they have that line, like they get into a car crash, right? And one of the characters says, "I thought the car was going to blow up." And the other character says, "That only happens in the movies." And then the car blows up anyway. Like, as an audience member, you roll your eyes because that is a stupid line. That is like them trying to say, yeah, it's stupid, but we did the stupid, and you don't get to have it both ways.
I know this is about games, but I feel the same way in The Last of Us. You have to do that. Like, you have to do several puzzles where you either need to get a pallet to get Ellie across a body of water because she can't swim, or you need to find a ladder to get to a higher ground. And at a certain point in the third act of the game, a character remarks like, "Ugh, another. We're gonna need to find another ladder to get out of this room." And I'm like, if you are acknowledging that we as the player are sick of doing this thing over and over, why are we doing this?
Why are we doing this? Right. If the only reason this works in your movie is because Deadpool like makes a joke about it and that makes it okay, maybe just don't do it and write different jokes.
Yeah.
Okay, but now that we've gotten that out of our system, the Summer Blockbuster, right? This was all an excuse
I love that there was just like a collective sigh of relief from all
a little
three
bit of therapy.
It's like, that's off. That's out. Yeah.
That's all that's out. But
we'll be back in 3 years with Doomsday and Secret Wars. Bye, guys.
It is very upsetting to me. Like, I never like being on this side of the critical reception. Usually I kind of align with the general consensus, but this is one of those rare times where it's like, I don't understand why people love this. It's great if you do. It's important to find things that you love in everyday life. I do not understand it. Mm-hmm. But what does this say about the Summer Blockbuster? Obviously, this is a really rare case of an R-rated movie making a splash in the summer, right? A lot of Summer Blockbusters are not R-rated. Do we know, Darren? I'm going to assume you know off the top of your head. What is Inception? What is Inception rated?
I do not know. I assume PG-13, right? It's certainly not R.
It's certainly not. Okay. I think, let's see here. The Sixth Sense, is that R? Gladiator? Are these Total Recall? These might be like our closest to R-rated.
Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer, yeah.
They had to be okay. They made a bunch of sex in a bunch of rooms in that movie.
They did a bunch of boobs.
MPA is org, so Gladiator is or.
Okay.
And then what was the other one you mentioned? Because there was another potential one there as well.
Sixth Sense?
Sixth
I don't
Sense.
think that was R, was it?
I have no idea.
It was like a little spooky, but not too spooky.
Does it have boobs in it?
Or does a character get kicked in the head? If a character gets kicked in the head, I think it might be R.
It's PG-13.
Okay, that makes sense.
And if it has more than two non-sexual fucks, I think is the thing as well.
Sure. Okay. Well, and so like, I guess all to say, like, an R-rated movie anywhere near the top of the summer list is incredibly rare, right? Jaws is probably not R. What do we think about Jaws? Hold on. Jaws being the thing that helped invent the Summer Blockbuster. Yeah.
The idea of like the wide opening as well. Like, again, this is insane how much of what we think about as like the act of movie going only really came to
Jaws PG. Nice little
PG?
Yeah. Well, because PG-13 didn't exist back in the day.
Yeah, they didn't have it yet.
They had to invent PG-13 for Spielberg, right? That was the thing. It was after it was Raiders, wasn't it? When he was like, "I'm going to melt these guys' faces off," and they're like, "I don't know if that's PG-13." It's like
Raiders and Gremlins. I heard. That's what I was.
He just loved melting things.
He just
and like it's like so. Then he's like, "So this movie's going to have a moment where somebody tears a beating heart out of somebody's chest." Like, that's what the PG-13's for, I think.
Love it.
But like, Jaws invented summer blockbusters. Like before that, people just didn't go to the movies in the summer. The idea was that like people were outside where it was sunny. Like the idea of releasing movies in the summer was seen as something people laughed at. It's like Psycho. People didn't go to the start of movies before Psycho. You just buy a ticket and you'd walk into whatever movie was playing.
Insane behavior in my mind.
Yeah,
like, genuinely
you would like
insane behavior.
If it was halfway through, you would watch the second half and then you watch the first half and then you'd leave. And it wasn't until Psycho that people were like, you know what, we're going to lock the doors. If you don't arrive after the first 10 minutes, don't bother coming in.
I remember talking to my dad, who was like a huge cinephile growing up in like the 50s and 60s in Chicago. And in summer, the only reason they would go to the movies is because their local theater advertised air conditioning. Yeah, no one in the neighborhood had air conditioning, and so it was like during heat waves, they'd be like, "Well, let's go to the movie," and they're like, "What are you going to see?" It's like literally doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter when. We're just going to go there for 8 hours and watch whatever they put in front of us.
So Jaws is considered the kickoff. The really interesting thing. So I found a wonderful kind of IMDb list of every summer blockbuster from 1975 Jaws to Inside Out to current day. But I went back a few more years so we could actually see the math. And Eric, if you want to show my beautifully organized spreadsheet, you are allowed to do so. But like. I started from 69 here. So like biggest movie of the summer was Midnight Cowboy, right? 44 million, Catch 22, 24 million, Shaft, 7 million. Deliverance, 46 million. Then we get our very first blip up of American Graffiti, George Lucas's we could probably consider to be his feature directorial debut if we want to count THX. I don't know.
I was going to say
his mainstream debut, I would say.
Mainstream debut, right? We get a little bit of blip and then back down for The Longest Yard in 1974. Then Jaws blows the fucker wide open with $470 million, right? And then we go to 1976, The Omen, which is the last dying breath of like the old summer movies. The Omen only gets 60 million, and then after that, it is 200 million or over for your summer blockbuster, all killer. Yeah, with Star Wars, New Hope. So just like to me, looking at those numbers for those handful of years before Jaws, where it's like, oh, nothing. Oh, what's American Graffiti? Oh, never mind, it's nothing. Oh, shit, Jaws.
And the summers in the 80s.
Jaws the first movie to make over $100 million at the box office? Did I hear? I
believe so. I think I read that this morning. Yeah. With obviously not counting inflation, but
yes.
Oh yeah, none of these prices listed.
Gone with the wind.
Yeah. None of these prices are adjusted for inflation. Yeah.
And when you look at like you said, once especially when Star Wars came out in 77, hitting the ground running in the 80s, launching these major what would become major franchises, with the Star Wars sequels and Indiana Jones and Alien and Ghostbusters and Beverly Hills Cop, and then it was to me, obviously growing up, like I don't know if I saw any movies in the 80s because I exited the 80s at 3 years old, but in the 90s I just saw a shit ton of movies with my family, and every summer I remember it having almost every year that moment. When we talk about games, we talk about those moments where you're like, oh, everything's different now. Like Mario 64, you're like, oh, he's running around in 3D, everything's different now.
You can pull his face.
I feel like every summer as a kid I was like, that man, I don't know why someone took me at 4 years old to see Terminator 2, but I was like, that man turned into liquid. Everything's new. That man put dinosaurs on the screen. Everything's different now. Twister came out. They tore apart. A cow was flying through the air. Everything's done. Like everything's done. They blew up the White House in Independence Day. Everything's different. This is like everything's changed. Oh my God, he brought a camera back in time to the storming of Normandy. Like everything's different. Like it just felt like every summer I was just like had my breath taken away. And I want to have my breath taken away again. And very rarely are movies taking my breath away.
We got that lovely blip last year with Barbenheimer, right? which is like, oh, these are two phenomenal and very different and, kind of unusual. Barbie won the summer as a comedy.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah. And on an IP that everyone was like, you're making it. It's like when it got announced in the trades, like, you make really? Greta Gerwig? Yeah. Like indie darling coming off Little Women? This is what you're doing? Really?
Yeah.
You're making this movie? And then we're like, oh, wait, never mind. My mistake. You made the right choice here.
Absolutely.
Just a shout out there. I think there's a debate in the comments about like movies being omitted. They're talking about not seeing Tim Burton's Batman. If I remember correctly, didn't Burton's Batman top the global box office, but Last Crusade topped the domestic box office for 89? I think.
These are global. These are. Batman probably won the year. So what this chart is movies that won the summer, not necessarily the year, but these are the summer blockbusters. And so actually you can see in my notes here, Last Crusade, 1989. Batman was number 2 in the summer. Probably Batman had incredible legs at the box office, kept going. But this is just talking about who won the summer.
How come Dick Tracy's not on this list?
Dick Tracy didn't win.
Dick Tracy.
I really like Dick Tracy. I rewatched it recently. Like it's and I assume you guys talked about like the weird vanityness of like every couple of years Warren Beatty will do something in character as Dick Tracy.
There's like a 15-minute Zoom interview.
Yeah, in character where he's just wearing a fedora. Therefore, it's retaining the rights of it. Like there was one where he was like interviewed in a chair, like it was a talk show, kind of like Charlie Rose style, in character as Dick Tracy to retain the rights.
He's gonna next year. It's just gonna be like he films like a 60-second cameo.
Yeah. With the hat on. He's photographed with the hat on is the thing, like in the street. Like I really do like Dick Tracy so much. Again, that's one of the wave of the post Batman kind of like, remember in the 90s when they were like, do people like superheroes? It's like, no, they like 1930s pulp heroes. So we're gonna do the Phantom, we're gonna do the Shadow, we're gonna make up the Rocketeer. Like it's so incredible.
By the way, one of the greatest triple features ever. Start with the Shadow, that's the weakest. Go to Phantom, Billy Zane, oh my boy, and then Rocketeer, right? The
Rocketeer is so good.
Rocketeer's so good. To me, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, all you.
Oh, and I was just going to say, like, the lovely thing is, how I tried to organize this list is just by like. What I was looking for was connections, right? And to me, like, there were actually far less properties together than I thought. We get 5 out of the 9 Star Wars movies on this list. More surprising, as far as I'm concerned, is 4 out of the 6 Jurassic Park universe movies are on the summer blockbuster topping. Hello.
Oh no, you're back. I think you did
I'm back.
Yeah, you're back.
I blipped.
You thought,
Thanos.
Thanos. Go ahead.
It is a numbers game. Like, so do we count like the young franchises where like the first 3 indies get on there or the first 2 Shreks get on there? Like, do we count like franchises that clearly have the most steam at the start and then like audiences are like, we like this, we just don't like it as much as we used to?
Yeah. Beverly Hills Cop, Back to the Future. Yeah.
Where there's a point at which like they're going pretty good, and then like to be fair, they're still making lots of money. They're just not making all of the money.
Absolutely, but like the 3 original Indiana Jones movies obviously make the cut, and I want to say both of the other Indiana Jones, or at least Crystal Skull was number 2, just beating
second to the Dark Knight.
Second to the Dark Knight, right? Which is like, okay, obviously the Dark Knight's winning, but like they make it up there
last year.
So weird.
It was head to head, that and Dead Reckoning Part 1. They were like locked in.
So close.
I love Dead
Jack,
Reckoning.
obviously you put a lot of work into this. I love this spreadsheet.
Yeah.
However, I feel like we had a bit of a disagreement over what is summer, which is a weird thing to argue about. But you had what was your rule of like what is summer?
So doing some research as far as what the film industry considers summer, it starts at roughly the last week of May and goes until sometime September-ish.
Yeah. What if I told you summer is a state of mind? And I think you get summer movies, you could be a summer movie on Vibes, and it doesn't matter when you release.
Oh, this is your James Cameron always makes a summer movie, I think was your argument.
Every James Cameron movie is a summer blockbuster, even though
when it
Avatar: Way of
releases
Water,
just before Christmas.
just before Christmas. The Super Mario Brothers movie is a summer blockbuster, even though it released on April 5th. You know what? I'm going to go harder. Ryan Coogler makes summer blockbusters. I know Black Panther
even they release in February,
beginning of February, and his next vampire movie is releasing in February. That feels like February. Summer starting early because of global warming. So
thanks. Well, more to the point, though, I will argue that the theaters and the studios are trying to push summer. Like it is a conscious attempt to roll back summer. So I would argue that things like Jack mentioned the end of May. I think it is at the very least at the start of May. The start of May is generally seen as the starting pistol, going back to Iron Man. And like Marvel traditionally would mark out the first weekend in May as a release. Now, obviously that worked out very well for them last year with like Quantumania. That was just a slam dunk. But generally speaking, it's like the start of May is like the start of the corridor. And you will also have attempts like everybody always goes, why did Warner Brothers spend so much time with Zack Snyder? Which is great. I love invoking Zack Snyder in the podcast. Everybody is perfectly rational. Everybody's but I love that you sounded like a Zack Snyder character saying that, by the way, Jack. I appreciate that. Oh no. But like setting aside any personal feelings about Snyder and without getting into arguments about it, people are like, why did Warner spend so much time and effort like trying to get Snyder to release movies that were going to have mass appeal? And the reason is because he opened 300 in March. And there was this big argument at whether Snyder could like take the flag of summer and push it back into March. That is what the Warner Brothers Zack Snyder project was. We're going to keep giving this guy money because if he keeps releasing movies in March that play well, we can then begin colonizing April. And then if that happens, because obviously the thing is you want these big tentpoles, you want movies with big opening weekends. You can't gamble on a Barbenheimer. You generally don't. You want your own weekend if you're releasing a big tentpole. And there are only so many weekends, obviously, between the start of May and, as you said, like early September. But it is like if we can push those back one direction or the other. And I do think like August is interesting because August is kind of like the dying days of summer. August is like where summer goes to die, right? Because that's you're getting ready to go back to school. But it's like if a studio has no faith in a movie, they will typically like dump it in August. August is like the dumping month. Like you'll know a Halloween.
We talking about Borderlands?
You know a Halloween movie is bad when they open it in August. Like that's how bad August
I feel
is.
like you should legally have to release it in October.
Yeah.
Yes.
like if they're like, it's just that bad, we can't legally release it in October. It's like into August it goes.
I mean, even so next 2025, in theory, April 4th, I'm imagining one of these will move, but the next Fast and the Furious movie, which I'm not sure if it's Fast 11 or Fast 10 Part 2, and the Minecraft movie. Both of those.
Oh, the Jason Momoa Minecraft movie. I think you have to describe it as.
And like Charlie Day, I think, or one of the. I think maybe one of the Sunny guys. Yeah. Like those feel like summer blockbusters at heart, even though they may not. And I'd say that August, September, we get away from summer. I think in October we get back into summer. Because I think we're getting Venom movies, we're getting Joker movies, we're getting folks excited to have communal experiences. Because we're releasing the dangerous summer blockbusters.
I was about to say, now, you have to separate the Venom from all this. But like the Joker thing is like October is like pre-Prestige. It's like the summer of Oscar season is where like October is. It's if you have a movie that you think is going to qualify for awards, but you think is going to play well at the box office, you put it in October so it can play basically through the awards season. Obviously, that same argument applies to Venom because everybody's like Tom Hardy is taking home all of the Oscars.
But
Venom, this new Venom, he Venoms a horse. There's a horse Venom.
And then he Ang Lee hulks like across the desert.
Venom's a horse and Ang Lee hulks. Perfect uses of the English language.
I'm having a blood clot related stroke right now at that sentence, Marty. That Venom Ang Lee's Hulk horse is not a sentence.
Venom does Ang Lee a Hulk horse.
Like the image that those words put into your mind is the image in the trailer. Like it's a perfectly accurate description of what happens. But like, as Marty said, that is the dangerous release where it's like, this is not a summer movie, but also it could be a summer movie.
Well, and that brings us like there is definitely like, and we talked about this when we talked about Die Hard, whether or not it's a Christmas movie. Obviously, Die Hard released in the summer, planning for a Christmas home video release. Titanic, very famously, a Christmas movie, but Cameron knew that the home video release would be perfect for summer. And so like there was a little bit of that, but now we are in this age in which, things come to streaming so fast but we still need that box office to make the obscene amount of money back. So where did the summer blockbuster is a little wibbly wobbly ever since home video?
It is. But again, like it's generally been okay. The problem is that you get into a situation where it's that one weekend thing. It's that idea of like movies that cost so much that you can only afford to release one of them a weekend because like it absolutely needs to dominate. You can't have it like you can't have two movies taking the oxygen out and killing each other, which is a problem. Like you look about 3 or 4 weeks ago, there was for the first time in 2 or 3 years, you had like 3 movies make over $20 million at the box office. Like Inside Out 2, Long Legs, and I can't remember what the other one was, and I feel really bad about it. Oh, maybe Twisters or maybe A Quiet Place. I can't remember one of those two.
Sure. Oh yeah, I think A Quiet Place did very well. Yeah.
Also, I just read Long Legs box office surpassed Furiosa, which is just weird to me. If you would have said that a year ago, I'd have been like, "Why? What are the legs and why are they long?"
I guess it had really long legs at the box office.
Wagga wagga.
Beautiful. What a beautiful movie that was. Also, just a small aside, we still get wonderful movies like Long Legs and Twisters.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
This has been a pretty good summer, to be fair. Like
honestly, this has been great.
A Quiet Place. You've had Twisters. I liked Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I don't think it's a masterpiece.
Wasn't the best of the Apes
Furiosa. Yeah, but it's still an apes movie. There's a talking apes. They're talking apes and they do stuff. They cosplay Gladiator. Like I know the Proxima was really excited for the Gladiator 2 trailer, and I'm so happy for him. But yeah, like we had like
Dune
Furiosa.
2? Yeah.
But Dune 2 is a March release. That doesn't count as a summer.
Oh, that's summer.
Does it?
Listen, the Dune movies are summer blockbusters, regardless if the first released in November, I think, the second released in March. Listen, you got that much sand in your movie, summer blockbuster.
It's a summer blockbuster. You might as well.
It's the beach. It's so beachy we forgot the water. It's like it's all beach.
Oh absolutely. Go ahead, Marty.
No, I was just gonna go because my thing's kind of taking us in a slightly different direction. So.
Oh no, and that's what I was hoping for because I was just going to button up the box office thing, which is that like they've always been playing with the summer box office draw, whether or not they're planning for home video release or not. Like they've always been trying to, I believe what Darren said is colonizing April. Which I think is beautiful. They have always been trying to stretch out the hype season, right? Which has now stretched out the hype to a point in which there isn't a lot of hype left. Thanks, Hollywood.
Well, I mean, you look at like Christmas, where Christmas has like generally been like where you release a prestige fare or some family fare, and it's now Star Wars. It was briefly like up until the pandemic, it was Star Wars Island. Disney were just like, can we release a Star Wars movie on Christmas and have it be like the biggest movie of the year? And twice they're like, yes, we can. Which is insane. And I mean, I think also, to be fair, even Rogue One did fairly well in the Christmas slot as well.
Yeah.
See, what I'm saying, it was a mistake to move Solo to May. That was obviously the only problem with that movie.
Oh, God. Look at that. Would you put that little Wookiee there? Yeah, get that man out of there. Get that man out.
First of all, that's chunky, crunchy, itchy. I forget that is Chewbacca's son. And he's about to watch his grandfather watch pornography. All right, you leave that.
Vior porn, if I remember correctly, right?
It was like a Diana Ross music video pornography. Yeah,
but it was like was a virtual reality, I think, as well, which makes it even weirder. Where like Grandpa's about to get freaky. Like, you're not gonna know what Grandpa's reacting to, but Grandpa's gonna be reacting to it.
That was the first. Was that the first reaction video? Like, predated YouTube. Chunky reacting to Grandpa's porn. What a weird sentence. That's a weirder sentence than Venom Horse Angly Hulks. Those also sound like Manchurian Candidate, like things you say in order to activate like a sleeper cell.
Scar. Yeah. Rubber bend.
Are there any summer blockbusters from either 80s, 90s, aughts, or anything that like you look back on like really fondly as having good memories of like seeing this in theaters, maybe seeing it multiple times? I have like obviously all their problems that arose afterwards. I really like the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy. Like I saw each of those movies in theaters several times. I really like adventure movies, and I feel like we just don't get a lot of movies that feel like adventure movies, like kind of like Princess Bridey, like Indiana Jones, and those were movies that I just kind of loved and associated with their summers because they were things I'd be like, oh, this is really great. I'll go and see it with my parents, and then I'll go see it with my friends. And like by the end of the summer, I'd seen them like 3 or 4 times, and I was like, man, Gore Verbinski, what are you doing? You're directing really good movies.
Yeah.
I would argue that the problem with like adventure movies is that like we started moving towards green screens. There's no coincidence that like the Pirates come out on the cusp of green screen. They're the last movies that you will make in a tank like that unless you are James Cameron, And
everyone points to the Stellan Skarsgård character of being like, oh my god, look at the like the prosthetics on that, and Davy Jones and being like, oh my god, look how great that looks.
Yeah. But like the thing is that if you look at those movies, that's the last time I think you could have got away with that, because now a studio looks at that and goes, yeah, but for half the budget, we can just film it in front of a green screen and it will look like, Barbados. It will look like the Bahamas. It will look like, the Caribbean. And nobody will know the difference, but there is a difference. I think you can like just instinctively tell the difference between what is real and what is fake. And more than that, even if you can't, you know that it's so easy to make that stuff fake that even when you do see it, you don't necessarily trust it. I do think maybe that's a reason why we have seen such a push away from adventure movies. Because even like something like, say, you mentioned Indiana Jones and the not the Crystal Skull. Obviously, the Crystal Skull is a great example of that because that's a movie that looks like it takes place entirely inside a computer compared to like the actual locations of, at least Raiders and Last Crusade. I know that like Temple of Doom is mostly on sound stages, but Last Crusade and Raiders used real locations and they filmed on there. But you look at, say, Crystal Skull and you look at, say, Dial of Destiny. And I know Dial of Destiny did do a lot of location shooting, but it's also digitally graded and computer aided, that it may as well have been shot on a green screen. So it doesn't, as you said, it doesn't have that same like adventure feeling to it. It doesn't have the texture and the tactility to it. Although maybe I'm willing to accept I'm just an old man who's out of touch shaking my fist at the sky, Marty. Maybe there are kids who are like, Dial of Destiny, man, that is a thrilling adventure movie. It reminds me of like getting on an airplane with my grandpa.
I think
we getting on a airplane with grandpa. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's something we talked about when we were talking about like Tom Cruise and his Mission Impossible movies and how basically half of the production budget goes to Tom Cruise's insurance payments so he can say, I almost murdered myself for this movie. And like part of that is what leads to the excitement of those movies, knowing that Tom Cruise broke his ankle actually jumping from building to building does add a sense of, I don't know if momentum is the right word, but like
tactility, perhaps texture,
maybe tactility,
tangibility.
Ooh, tangibility into which where you are watching these movies, it has that palpable excitement. And guess what? I don't think anyone cares that it's green screen, but we all know it's green screen and it lowers the hype. It lowers the excitement. There's
also just, I feel like there are certain people who like, I don't think we're saying like CG is bad.
No,
it's just like it's an art that I feel like a lot of people use as a shortcut as opposed to using it as like, oh, this is one of the brushes I have in my bag.
Yeah.
And it's when you watch a movie where you're like, oh, that's what a lot of the modern MCU movies are just like, oh, okay, clearly you filmed this in Atlanta. These two actors probably weren't there at the same time. You stitched them together. This is reshoots. Like seeing the Captain America 4 trailer, I'm just like, oh, none of this looks this looks real. Like
there's a fight in a cherry blossom and I
think it's supposed to be like in DC on like where.
And like at the end, and it really does look like it's there hiding, like that it takes place in the Pentagon or something. Like it does look like Zoom background level quality CGI. And I accept, to be clear, we're not blaming the CGI artist. Like it's an art form that is like, as you said, like any other. I think Furiosa earlier in the year used CGI absolutely wonderfully.
Great.
You mentioned like Davy Jones's tentacles, which are one of the great CGI effects, and those are from 2003. But they like VFX artists are incredibly put upon by directors and executives who don't necessarily know what they want. They aren't clear about what they want. There's production crunch. There's what's called pixel fucking, is the term that's used in the industry. Like, it is not the VFX artist's fault, but yes, like, I'm watching that and I'm thinking either they are like so doubt that that is exactly the shot I'm thinking of, and there's quite a few of them like that. It looks exactly like either the like VFX artists haven't had the time they need to get that done, or the producers are worried that like this fight actually takes place in the Pentagon and they want to throw off suspicion, or they shot on a green screen because they haven't decided where the fight's going to take place. Like, there's the great example of that from like Thor Ragnarok, which is again a movie I really like.
Oh yeah,
I really really love Thor Ragnarok, but there's the sequence where like Hela breaks the hammer.
Mjolnir,
And that, yeah, that took place. That was shot, I believe, in an alleyway, or at least it was meant to take place in an alleyway. At least you can see in the trailers. And then, yes, thank you, Eric. They did that to it in post because they were like, that doesn't seem suitably epic. And it looks just so uncanny when you watch it in like movement, because you're like, you could tell that this wasn't shot in a field. And there are plenty of fields in Atlanta. Like, Atlanta has lots of grass. You could find a field, and if you wanted to shoot that on grass, you could shoot it on grass. But you didn't make the decision when you were filming it and decided to fix it in post. It's like, it's the use of CGI. It's not CGI, as you said. It's a brush. It's a tool like any other. It can be used absolutely beautifully. But I think when it is used as a very easy way to avoid making decisions early in the process, you end up with results that are.
I mean, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies use a lot of CG, but it's very like James Gunn clearly has a vision for what his movies are going to be from the get-go. And so, like, by the end, you don't get the feeling that it's like, oh, none of these people are in a room together and they're kind of stitching everything in at the last moment. You get, oh, like he's using this again, a tool in his box. And that's like, I'm really looking forward to Superman next. I'm not a huge Superman fan at all, but I'm really looking forward to his take on Superman, because I feel like him bringing his storytelling chops and his visual aesthetic, which in my opinion has gotten stronger and stronger, over the course of the past decade or so, has me really excited for it.
But crucially, like, that movie is releasing the same day as Fantastic Four, and it wrapped a day after Fantastic Four began filming.
Started. Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe the rumor is, and again, this is just a rumor, I need to put my hands up, Fantastic Four does not have a finished script yet. Like, which is insane.
We'll finish it in post. Wait a minute.
Insane. Oh. That's insane.
Let's make sure you have lots of shots of the back of the actors' heads, so we can just dub in whatever we need via ADR. Want to do the Madam Web thing, where we just have them like cover their mouths while they're talking, and we can just dub in anything over.
Completely ADR the villain, so you're like, what is this man
shoot
saying?
Him from the nose up. Yeah, that's the key.
That's the key. What is something I'd like to bring up? Looking at all of the past summer blockbusters, something that something I did not know, and something that is a clear outlier. Obviously, like we're talking about, a lot of big movies, a lot of action movies, a lot of adventure movies, a lot of fantasy and sci-fi. Most of the sci-fi though is Star Wars, but like, big movies, right? Like, you're in the theater, you want big spectacle movies. One outlier that is part of a genre that no other film is part of a genre of is 1990's Ghost.
Have you rewatched Ghost recently?
I have not rewatched Ghost recently.
It is so much movie. It is like every kind of movie just smushed together. It's like, you think it's a romance movie, and it is a romance movie. You think it might be a movie about moving on. It kind of is. You might think it's kind of like a PG, like young audience friendly horror, and it kind of is as well. You may think it's a movie about the end of the 80s and yuppies, and it kind of is as well. You may think that there's an extended subplot at the start of the movie about like swindling and embezzlement at a Wall Street firm, and it absolutely is that too. You may think it's also a movie about a hustler who's like pretending to be a psychic, but turns out, wait, actually is a psychic, and it's that too. It is all kinds of movies smushed into a 100-minute runtime. It is funny, it is thrilling, it has action beats, it has suspense beats, it has romance. It's incredible, because they literally do not make movies like that anymore, because a studio executive would like spray you with a bottle of water and hit you with a newspaper if you came into the studio and were like, I got a pitch. It's like, get off my desk.
No, it's a beautiful movie, but like it is the one thing that does not fit in like like amongst your Jurassic Parks or Lion Kings, even Die Hard 3, even what's another weird one? Even Barbie, which is a very weird summer blockbuster, kind of fits in with all of these other things. Ghost is the clear outlier. And by the way, this is something I did not know. Directed by Jerry Zucker.
Yep, 1/3 of the Zaz.
A Zucker brother directed?
Yep, this got a Best Picture nomination. He did not get a Best Director nomination. There was scandal, let me tell you.
It's his green book.
It is his green book. He did a Peter Farrelly.
What I do like is I am kind of like going through all of the second place winners. In 1980, Empire Strikes Back beat out The Summer to the Zucker brothers' Airplane.
Yeah.
And so Jerry Zucker got his chance to come back 10 years later.
I'll show him all.
I'll show him.
But yeah, no, Ghost is incredible. Like it is, I believe the writer has described it as a movie that began with like an acid trip in like the late 60s and then just ended up being a movie released in 1990, which is exactly what you want to hear.
No, and you know, like took over the cultural zeitgeist with Unchained Melody, with you know, pottery in general. It's sexy now, people.
Erotic pottery. Like, and then Naked Gun does a parody, which I love as well, because that's the other brother, the other Zucker brother, does like the parody of like the pottery scene from like Ghost.
That's kind of genius to be like, you make the serious one, I'll goof on it, double the money.
I do again, and it's worth putting this in context. Ghost is basically like the equivalent of something like, say, Inception or like, you know, Joker or like Black Panther, where it's the blockbuster that is not only so financially successful but so like beloved by the public that there's no choice but to give it a Best Picture nomination.
Oh yeah, just huge. But like there is I'm hard to find another movie on that list that even has a romantic subplot, is I guess what I'm saying. And so it is just so far out there. It's like big ups to Patrick Swayze for carrying, you know, this movie to the stardom that it got. Hey, now Eric is showing Shrek.
And Shrek 2, which I believe played in competition at Cannes, which is one of my favorite facts about Shrek 2. Like it was in competition at Cannes.
Maybe. I'll give you that, maybe. I'll give you Shrek, maybe. I don't know. I think it's
give him an inch with Shrek.
I'll give you an inch with Shrek and Shrek 2 for a romance subplot.
So, like, how do we feel going forward? Do we feel like the summer blockbusters, like we said, this year has had some you know, pretty fun times at the movie theater, both big budget and small budget. Like, do we feel confident in the fact that, you know, next year we're getting our Fast and the Furiouses and Minecrafts and more Jurassic and Superman and Fantastic Four. Yeah, we're getting more Karate Kid, more Dirty Dancing. Yeah, we're not getting
Wait a minute.
Get out of here. Like, do we feel good about that? Do we feel, and obviously like the summer afterwards is supposedly going to be the big one, because I think Batman's coming back and Toy Story and in theory The Mandalorian and
isn't like Doomsday?
Yeah. I'm excited that in 2 years we're getting this. May 15th slot is the Spielberg untitled UFO movie. Like him being like, I got one more alien.
Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind.
Yeah, he's like, I got one more in me. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm down for this. Yeah.
To me, like, this is what I love going to the movies. I still love going to the movies. I think people in general love going to the movies, but if we keep seeing movie ticket prices the way they are and home theater setups getting nicer and nicer, I see us circling this intellectual property drain that we are a little bit in right now. Top Gun, Jurassic World, Despicable Me 3, Captain America, Jurassic World, Transformers, Iron Man, Avengers, Harry Potter, Toy Story, Harry Potter. Like, we have been circling this IP drain for a long time.
Do we think that last year's Oppenheimer? Oh no, do we think Oppenheimer is a people are going to use it as a effective blueprint, or do we think that is a right place, right time, right person kind of thing?
Right.
Yeah.
That is either like the start of the next data point, or that is the longest yard in The Omen from the last data point.
That's going to be Ghost 30 years from now. People are going to be like, Oppenheimer just came up. That is the scene where they had sex to the Bhagavad Gita. What's going on? There was so much movie.
It's a suspense thriller. There's a 10-minute sequence where they have 5 meetings about one meeting, man. It's incredible.
The guy from Trap shows up for a little bit.
Yeah. I love the assumption that Josh Hartnett will be the guy from Trap to future generations. Like,
100%. Assuming it's the big movie.
100%.
I don't know.
Yeah. They didn't show it for critics, so I don't know yet. It's not opening until this weekend in Ireland. But like to the point about like Oppenheimer, I think that are there directors who could do that anymore? When is the new Jordan Peele movie opening? Because he did mark the date.
That got moved to October. It was coming out, I believe. It was going to be like a Christmas Day movie, and then it got moved, I think, October 2026.
Okay.
Oh.
Ways away. Yeah. No,
so even he is kind of moving out of summer. Because Nope was a great summer movie. And if I remember
Nope
correctly,
was a great summer movie, yeah.
And Us was an early summer movie, and obviously I think Get Out was a February movie because people were like, we don't know if this is going to be good, and then it ends up grossing nearly $500 million. But it does feel like you need the directors to make those movies. Like Marty had that like wonderful monologue earlier on when he was talking about like going to the cinema in the 90s and being blown away and just naming Spielberg movies and just being like, I went and saw a Spielberg movie and it blew my mind every time he was doing something different that I'd never seen before. And it's very telling that like in that case, what was drawing you to the cinema, whether consciously or not, to be clear, I imagine you may not have been conscious Spielberg. You may have just been like, ooh, dinosaurs, cool. Ooh, Normandy, cool. Ooh, man in fedora, cool. But you have this idea of directors being able to mark out spaces and do things in the summer that are cool. Like Nolan has marked the like July 27th weekend as the Nolan weekend. The last weekend of July is traditionally the Christopher Nolan weekend, where I think every movie of his last 8, with the exception of Interstellar, has released in that window because he likes being a summer guy. He believes his movies are summer movies. And like you can tell that like when they were releasing Oppenheimer, there was a real bit of like, this really feels like it's more of a fall movie. This is a movie, it's a 3-hour movie about the guy who built the atomic bomb. And there aren't really any car chases in it. And it's like, no, if you put it in summer, if it's good enough, it will attract audiences and audience will go and see it and fall in love with it. And that is the thing. That is the problem for me. Is that you have this kind of flood of IP in the zone, and it's just like you're conditioning people to just go and see things they already know and things they already recognize. And you wonder why when you release new movies, they don't go and see those new movies. It's because the movies that you have told them and conditioned them to think are important are the ones that are franchise brand extensions. And the problem is that you can only keep returning to the well so often before it runs dry. We saw that with, arguably with Mission Impossible, arguably with like Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny last year. We saw it with like The Flash trying to bring back Michael Keaton, and you can see it even in what Disney are doing with Deadpool and Wolverine, to circle back to the discussion that we all kind of were very happy to get away from earlier on. I know, I'm just pulling us back in.
You're doing great. Yeah.
But there, the nostalgia, like it isn't like remember this movie that you saw 3 years ago that you liked. Like it isn't like remember you like the Guardians movies that you saw 3 years ago. Remember you like the John Wick movies that you saw 3 years ago. This one's like, okay, well, we've exhausted all of the franchises that you can remember from 3 years ago. We've kind of worn out all the goodwill by just pumping them out film after film after film after film and sending them straight to streaming. You don't want to see Benedict Cumberbatch's face again as Doctor Strange for another 5 years. So how do we possibly find a way to make money? And it's like, okay, well, what if we go back to like movies that we didn't make ourselves, movies that we acquired through the purchase of another studio, and they haven't done this like IP fracking that we're doing, so this is just ripe. We've expanded out, we've like pushed our borders forward, and we can extract maximum value from that. And it's like, do you not see where this is going? Do you not like there are only so many properties that you can continue to exploit before you exhaust the resources that you have? And like Pixar are a great example of this, where like after Disney bought Pixar, they made a rake of sequels to the classic Pixar films, and those made all of the money. And it was great. They had money fights in Pixar. The only problem is they conditioned people to think that Pixar just makes sequels to beloved Pixar movies. And eventually those sequels stopped making money, like Lightyear, for example. And people stopped going to see regular, like new, exciting Pixar movies because they just wanted to see the old ones rehashed. And so that meant that, the only way that you could make money off the Pixar brand this year was releasing Inside Out 2, because Inside Out was the only Pixar original film released between like 2010 and 2020 that, you know, was in a position where you could exploit nostalgia to that level for it. You're not going to make The Better Dinosaur and get $1.6 billion. The only like critical and commercial hit that you have that is an original film in that decade-long window is Inside Out 2. And now that you've done that, now that you've gone and you've milked that, you've got the $1.6 billion, you've doubled the gross of the original film, what do Pixar do next that has equivalent value? They released Toy Story 5, but is Toy Story 5 going to make as much money as Toy Story 4 did? Did Toy Story 4 make as much money as Toy Story 3 did? And I know that we're talking like over $1 billion, so the question, you know, it's really kind of like a, who really cares if they don't make as much money? But like, it's very telling. You look at your sheet. We talked about it earlier. Jack's wonderful spreadsheet, one of the great works of art of the 21st century. When you scroll down the franchises, you typically see the first 3 entries in a franchise will enter, and then they'll just kind of drop off. So the biggest, you know, the most successful Pirates movies are Pirates 2 and Pirates 3. The most successful Indiana Jones movies are 1, 2, and 3. The most successful Jurassic World movies are, okay, well, those are an exception because they're the rebooted franchise. But like Shrek, the most successful Shrek movies are Shrek and Shrek 2. You know, that's
yeah.
Like you need to generate new content in order to like exploit it in the future. As cynical as that sounds, you need to invest in new things so that you can later on exploit the nostalgia for them.
What?
You need something. Like if you're going to exploit nostalgia, you need something to provide a basis of the nostalgia that you're going to exploit. Sorry, this was my long-winded rant. I apologize.
No, Darren, like IP fracking, because what we know of actual fracking is it causes the surface of the earth to collapse, right? Like too much digging underneath causes unstable ground. And this is like a bell that has been that at least those of us who are passionate about movies have been ringing for a long time. Is what are my kids who are teenagers? What are they nostalgic for? I'll tell you what they're nostalgic for. No, not even Minions. They are nostalgic for YouTubers they watched 10 years ago, like because they didn't have their own movies. They only had the movies that I was nostalgic for. We have gone so long without creating new things that we are going to be in a weird place in a handful of years. Yeah.
And Michael Bay's making a Skibbity movie. Do your kids like Skibbity?
Skibbity toilets.
The Skibbity toilet movie. Who's gonna be nostalgic for that meme, right?
I mean, literally, Michael Bay's making a movie.
Yeah, that's what happens when you let ambulance fail. As a culture, we failed Michael Bay, which is not a sentence I ever thought I'd say.
Yeah, ambulance was so good. He was like, is this too much drone? He's like, no, this is not enough drone. We need more drone.
Yeah.
You mean I can do this and I don't have to pay several $100 million to hire a jet?
Yeah. I will say there's a few things I'm looking forward to, or looking at the current slate, obviously subject to change, next year, 2025, summer 2025, and 26. Obviously, a lot of franchises, which we already talked about. However, a couple things I noticed that I'm excited about. Next May, the new movie from David Robert Mitchell, the guy who did It Follows and Under the Silver Lake, which I adore, but it felt like one of those movies where they're like, much like Richard Kelly in Southland Tales, like, you're never making a movie again. We'll give you the one box movie and then you get nothing else.
Yeah, I'm about to say, like, the thing with Richard Kelly is he got another shot. He just also whipped that other shot.
Stars Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor, and the log line. There's nothing we know about the movie except the log lines. A family in the 80s starts to notice some bizarre happenings in their neighborhood. Hell yeah, I'm in.
Reel the box energy from that pitch. Like,
I love a bizarre happening, but I'm like, you're giving an original movie to someone with a great vision. In 2026, we have March 20th, which again early summer. Project Hail Mary, which is a book, another space book from the guy who did Andy Weir, the guy who wrote The Martian, directed by Lord and Miller. So a live action movie by Lord and Miller, the Lego and Spider-Verse guys,
Jump Street guys,
Yeah, written by Drew Goddard, who I love, and then starring Ryan Gosling, Sandra Huller, who was nominated for Anatomy of the Fall last year. Ryan Gosling in space, not knowing what's going on. That sounds great. Put that man in space. Lee Cronin has a movie, an untitled movie, set next summer. I'm assuming like a cool spooky movie by one of the great Irish directors currently out there. And then the Daniels have their follow up to
Yes.
Everything Everywhere All at Once in June again. So I'm like, I'm hopeful.
Where's the Paul Thomas Anderson, Leonardo DiCaprio LA heist movie?
Oh yeah, the big old IMAX movie.
Yeah, like the one that is like it sounds like Heat, but directed by Paul Thomas Anderson.
Oh my god, that's got to be coming out soon because there's already like scenes of like that's got to be next year. I'm assuming.
Yeah, that they've been shooting on location around Los Angeles earlier this year, so that has to be. I can't imagine
supposedly Vineland, right? Like his take on the Pynchon book.
Yeah. But like I do love the idea of like Anderson being like, no, we need 2 years of post-production for all the CGI. I've decided it's gonna Leonardo DiCaprio is gonna have a talking raccoon sidekick. That's the pitch here.
Yeah,
we did in 2019.
It's in the paperwork.
The end of summer 2019, wasn't that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? I think that was like August.
That was August. Yeah.
So that was an exciting movie. Yeah, we just need more. I'm hopeful.
Yeah,
I know that's probably going to come back and bite me in the ass, but I'm hopeful.
No,
it's
there
okay
will
to be
always
hopeful.
be. Yeah. There will always be. Like, again, the joy and the excitement of the success of like Barbenheimer last year, where I was just kind of sitting in dread, kind of like waiting for that to have the worst possible outcome. Now, of course, the worst possible outcome is that the studios have learned absolutely nothing. Have just been, what if we release 2 movies at the same time? Is that a thing? And it's like, that is the thing about Hollywood. When movies succeed and when good movies succeed, you're like, the lesson from this is so obvious.
Yeah.
So obvious. And
Make
studios.
good movies.
And studios are like, hold on, what if Saw Patrol? It's like, I feel like you missed the point of this.
You were so close. You were so close, and then you were very far away.
It's like, give good directors the ability to produce good movies. That's the only lesson you need to learn.
Get out of their way. Yeah,
just get out of their
What
way.
if 2 movies?
I mean, we also there was
Gar Furiosa was the other one as well.
Gar Furiosa, Jesus!
I feel
shocking
sad for the
that
intern.
Work. I'm shocked that didn't work. Yeah,
the Garfield like dad
really
prison movie.
Yeah,
like, have you seen No, you have not seen Garfield. Garfield is such a strange movie. It is such a strange movie. It's about his relationship.
We didn't see Garfield.
We did not see Garfield. Yeah. We have more standards than that. Yeah.
It's one of those movies where I have never looked at Garfield and been like, I feel like the key to this character is his relationship to his absent father, voiced by Samuel L. Jackson. But the movie's like, you know what? I think the key to this character is relationship to his absent father, voiced by Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
Wait,
Chris Pratt voices Garfield, and
yes, and Samuel L. Jackson is. And he's swole. See if Eric can find a picture of Garfield's dad from Garfield. I just think audiences need to see this because it is something that is from this year's Garfield. It's an image of Samuel L. Jackson as Garfield's dad. I don't know what he's called, so I'm going to throw that out to Eric. There we go.
Oh, there it is.
He's a Chungus baby. Yeah,
big Chungus Garfield.
I do not like that.
No.
Yeah, no, that's the entire movie.
I guess doing like a little pivot into the others. Oh, I guess, do you guys have final blockbuster thoughts before I kind of have a segue that makes sense into what we've been watching and everything?
Blockbuster's good. Like big movies, like when things explode.
Yeah,
popcorn good.
Popcorn good. Like, the final wrap up thing for me is I love seeing movies in movie theaters. And, so like, I know already I'm kind of an outlier where, before you had to buy seats ahead of time, I would just go to the movie theater and buy a ticket for whatever movie was playing next, no matter what it was. So I'm an outlier as far as general audiences are concerned, but it was always more exciting when that zeitgeist was all together and you get to watch, even... something I was about to make a polarizing example, a less polarizing example of Avengers Endgame, right? Mm-hmm. And Captain America summons Mjolnir. The fucking crowd reaction for that was worth the price of admission. I don't care what the movie is. Being a part of that electricity was worth the price of admission. And so I hope people keep going to see movies in general because I like it.
Yeah. No. I mean, like the Quiet Place movies are just great movies to see with the crowd because the crowd is kind of like in on the action. Where like, and I know obviously experiences differ, and I've talked to people and said they see it with terrible audiences. But whenever I've seen it with audiences, they're dead quiet. And like, there's the person, like when anybody's grabbing popcorn, you can hear like the individual crinkle, which is so good because it's like you can hear the guilt of like, am I going to like, is that monster going to eat Lupita Nyong'o because I just had to have a popcorn now, like because I had to have a minstrel, like,
yeah.
So my little pivot is that another thing for a lot of the aughts, this wasn't obviously a summer blockbuster thing, but in terms of entertainment, I would associate, there was always kind of a big summer show to kick off the summer, and that was usually Thrones, right? So Thrones generally aired in May and kind of wrapped up in the first half of June. And especially when Game of Thrones was beloved and sort of was a like pop culture, monolith, like
a water cooler show. Yeah,
absolutely. It felt like one of those things where it was like every Sunday we're tuning back in. We're all watching it in our houses, but it's the equivalent of it all felt like we were at the same screening because everyone was like, you got to watch it when it airs. Otherwise you're going to wake up Monday morning and someone's going to post a spoiler. And
you talk about it in the real world as well. Like that's the marker of like true pop culture. Is you go into the office on Monday morning, and the person next to you is like, "Did you watch Game of Thrones last night?" Which doesn't happen.
Yeah, and it felt like those were like, for as much as I think I enjoyed a majority of this season of House of the Dragon and stuff. I don't feel like it matched that. Like that zeitgeist of Thrones, and maybe we're in a different place than we were 5-10 years ago. So just maybe I don't know if a show can do that anymore. It has the week to week thing, but like even the Bear, that the Bear dropped a month or two
all
ago, all at once, and it just feels like everyone talked about it. People got angry for a little bit, and now no one is talking about it until the next season comes out. Yeah, it's a little strange. I feel like the same way like Umbrella Academy I think comes out this weekend, and that's going to be the same thing where it drops. Some people are going to talk about it and then it's going to just fade away. Stranger Things, I don't know how they're going to handle that release. I imagine they're going to kind of think of a more, can we chop this last season up as much as we can?
Two episodes in monthly drops. Like we're not going weekly. It's still the Netflix model.
It's very different.
It's a very different thing. We're not doing weekly. We're doing monthly, quarterly episodes of Stranger Things.
There you go. Perfect.
Because they're all 90 minutes. Isn't that the thing? The final season episodes are all like 90 minutes. They're
like, this is actually whatever 6 full movies. I'm like, what are you doing? Which I guess is my way of getting into Darren. You wrote a piece, one of your columns this week was on House of the Dragon, on season 2 and your thoughts on it with it wrapping up. I guess we don't need to go into full spoilers on this because I know some people were waiting for the final season. I know Jack hasn't watched it for the final episode and everything. But what were your sort of thoughts on House of the Dragon season 2?
Well, I think just to go back, because I think like to make that connection that you're talking about a bit stronger, like I think there is something very interesting in the idea of like television always staggering behind movies. And when movies like move in a particular direction, television is always like ready to catch whatever falls off the edge of the plate. So there's a while where like movies stop being like adult dramas with movie stars in them. And like they stop making movies about like Kate Winslet is having an affair with Patrick Wilson. And then HBO's like, we'll take that for 6 episodes, please. It's like, can we make these, like, can we have all these Oscar-winning actors appearing on television? Can we, like, suddenly Nicole Kidman and Meryl Streep are TV stars now because they've stopped making movies that star Meryl Streep and Nicole Kidman. And, like, the same thing seems to be happening with, like, blockbusters where Game of Thrones, you point to Game of Thrones as this huge moment in the evolution of television as an art form, because I didn't know television could look like that. Shot on, 3 continents simultaneously, having this huge sense of scale and scope, this blockbuster budget, these spectacular effects. Like the final season, whatever narrative shortcomings that season has, every episode of that looks like a blockbuster summer release that you would play in theaters. Arguably, that would be the best way to watch The Long Night, because at least then the projector would be properly configured. But like you do have this idea of like, are summer blockbusters moving to television? Is like, and now these big event shows, which are ridiculously expensive, have movie stars. And interestingly, like you see that IP drip coming to television as well, where like the biggest shows of the year are now largely IP derived. HBO used to be the home of The Sopranos. It used to be the home of like The Wire and Deadwood. Now it's the home of like The Last of Us. Those like 10 different Game of Thrones spin-off and Penguin. Yeah, we got a fucking Penguin show coming to prestige television. Like the successor to The Sopranos is going to be like the Colin Farrell like playing his 40s gangster thing. The Danny DeVito
looks sick as hell, and Colin Farrell's Penguin absolutely could have been in Dick Tracy. Honorary Dick Tracy villain.
I'm very excited for it as well. Like I'm really looking forward to it. Christine Milotti's in there as well. Michael Kelly's in there. Like I'm actually honestly excited about it. But you could see television shifting towards that model of things you recognize. Where it's like, like HBO's biggest show of the past couple of years was The Last of Us. their biggest show of the next couple of years is going to be their Harry Potter reboot. Like, it's no longer new franchises. It's no longer new ideas. You're retrofitting new ideas to fit in existing franchises. Like Isa Lopez's pitch for Night Country becomes True Detective Season 4 because the True Detective brand has value. And you mentioned like the fact that House of the Dragon doesn't feel the same way as Game of Thrones. And I agree with that entirely. I think it is a massive success for HBO. As you said, like yourself, I broadly like it. I don't think it's incredible. I weirdly really liked the first season, and the second season I'm a bit more so on. I liked the first season because it felt like The Crown, but with dragons, which is an itch that I didn't know that I had until the show started scratching it. I'm like, oh yeah, that feels good. But like, I think that the issue with House of the Dragon is we've already had Game of Thrones, and this is inevitably going to feel like derivative of Game of Thrones, right down to the fact it doesn't have its own theme song. I am like mildly irritated that they could not come up with a unique theme song for House of the Dragon. They're just like, the opening music of Game of Thrones? Let's use that instead. And I say that as somebody who likes the show, but like without getting into spoilers, like we've talked about how much of the show is rooted in Daenerys Targaryen, like a character who logically will never appear in the show because it is set several hundred years before her birth. Wink, wink. But it's also like defined entirely in relationship to her, where the opening, text is 174 years before the birth of Daenerys Targaryen. Like, it is a show that feels inherently derivative and not its own thing, and more of Game of Thrones. And it's like, I liked Game of Thrones. I'm perfectly happy to have more of Game of Thrones, but it doesn't feel like exciting and fresh and interesting in the way that those early seasons of Game of Thrones did, because there had never been anything on television like that before. And it's like, that's what the next Game of Thrones is going to be. It's going to be something that feels the way that Game of Thrones did, which is there's never been anything like this on television. Whereas I watch House of the Dragon, I'm like, yeah, this is just like that thing that was on television for the better part of a decade.
Yeah, and I, in terms of the actual critiques, I do share some of yours that it very much this season feel, because if you read the Fire and Blood book and everything, it very much it's pointing to like this is a family civil war between two sides, and neither of them are really good. They're all kind of filled with bad people who do increasingly bad things and get caught in this downward spiral until an entire family lineage is wiped out, save for like Daenerys' lineage, which is half a world away. Whereas in this, they very much felt like we need a good side and a bad side, and we need to pick the good side, and we need to soften the good side, and we need to sharpen the bad side. And that became pretty crystal clear in how it handled, especially like Daemon's arc throughout the two seasons of this was a guy who does terrible things, but everyone loves him. And I think you called him the internet's boyfriend, right? Or they called him the internet's boyfriend.
They called him the internet's boyfriend.
Yeah, like, so it was like, well, we can't have the internet's boyfriend be like, hey, you, chop off a baby's head. Like, you can't have the internet's boyfriend say that.
like that's the thing. The thing that is so interesting about that is like the relationship between like what Damien has to do to move the plot forward. And so let's just talk in the first season. In the first episode, Damien has to be exiled by his brother Viserys. And in order to do that, Viserys has to believe that like Damien made a joke about like his dead baby, about Viserys' dead son. But the episode makes a point of not showing you Daemon doing that, because you seeing the character do this as one of their establishing character beats would make you think that guy's not a nice guy underneath it all. And then later on, you have like the moment where he takes his, again, like what's fascinating is it keeps walking up to the line and then like shaking its head and going, can't cross it. Like the first season, he takes his niece, Rhaenyra, to a brothel. And like they get undressed, and it's like, is he going to have sex with his niece while she's underage? Is he going to take her virginity? Because that would be really creepy and like make him a really disgusting character. And then he just kind of stops and walks out of the scene. And he's like, no, not too far. There's a moment later on where like Rhaenyra is married to Lenore, who's a gay man. And in the books, obviously, they need to get rid of Lenore in order for like Daemon to be able to marry his niece Rhaenyra. And how you do that is you kill Lenore, right? You arrange for Lenore to be killed. Except the show goes out of its way going, no. What if, hear us out here, Damon didn't have him killed, but had him and his boyfriend get in a boat and sail off to a distant planet where they all lived happily ever after, but we don't ever need to see them again. And it was functionally like he was dead, but also Damon didn't do a hate crime. It is so fascinating.
Fake his death by killing an innocent guard and putting his head in the fire and being like, well, probably his body.
And what are you going to do? Check dental records? Like there's a moment where like Damon in this early second season, without being too specific, orders an assassination that goes terribly wrong and ends in like the death of like a really sympathetic character. And like in the books, it's like Damon ordered this assassination and he was all behind it. And in the show's defense is, now look, Damon is a bit of a klutz. He maybe hired some people who weren't very good at their jobs, and they maybe took some liberties that they shouldn't have taken. And there's a moment where he quite literally says, and the show is very clearly on his side, hey, I was very clear in my instructions that they weren't supposed to do that thing. You can't blame me for it. I'm gonna go fuck off. Like it is incredible. Like how hard the show works to make sure that the audience at least has like the veil of deniability where they can be like, look, he may be a fuck up. Look, he may be guilty of incest, but he is not, I repeat, he is not a guy who assassinates characters who we like.
Now, anyways, now we've shipped him off to a haunted house for 6 episodes. Have fun, everybody.
where he can't have any interaction with the rest of the plot. Like, it's a really great way to maintain the boyfriendness of it. What if he doesn't have to interact with any of the other characters we like?
This just sounds so incredibly toothless. Like they are sucking any sort of fun out of the show.
I think they had No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I do enjoy it. Like, I think it's very lavishly produced. Like, the performances are very good. I think, it is getting at. It has some big ideas and some interesting ideas and concepts that it's playing with. But it does constantly feel like it tiptoes up to the height of saying something really interesting, and then it's like, but if we do, the internet will be very mad at us. Where sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just want to echo that I do enjoy watching it week to week. I think it is, by and large, like in the moment, well written with well written dialogue. I really like the cast. I really like the additions to the cast. I was like, we need a couple like wild cards in this show, especially if Damon's going to be in his haunted house all season. Like, we need to add some wild cards. And I feel like the back half of the season introduced some interesting elements so that when a bunch of like stuffy generals and everything are around a meeting table, you now have interesting people at that table, which Game of Thrones was always great about. Of having like weird people like Tyrion and Bronn and Jaime and like people that were like a little bit strange to sort of buck up against the more buttoned up folks. So I am enjoying it by and large, but I do completely agree with those critiques. And we're getting that new, they already said they show in that little HBO, before the last episode, HBO aired like a big sizzle reel of here's all the shows we have coming up in the next year or two. And it was like, White Lotus is coming back and Sex and the City is coming back. And here's a little bit of The Last of Us Part 2. And here's the Penguin.
Catherine O'Hara is in Last of Us Part 2, isn't she?
Yeah. As an original character. She's not, whoever she is, she's not a character from the game. And then Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is the Dunk and Egg show, which takes place between, it's like whatever, 75 years after House of the Dragon, but before Game of Thrones. And this is part of, George R.R. Martin has said that there are 7 series currently in some form of development. Obviously, all of those will not get made. Like the Jon Snow show seemed to have sort of lost its footing. There are shows that had pilots filmed that never got made. So
there was the Witches one during the first age or something like that.
With like
Jane
Naomi
Goldman.
Watts.
Yeah, right? Jane Goldman was showrunning it.
The pilot. It very much feels like, again, I'm enjoying it. But I'm like, I have my eye on you because I know what happens when you stretch a franchise too thin. Like, I've seen it with things I love. I know what happens when you do this. So I'm keeping one eye open for you, House of the Dragon.
And also, like, just the very hard edge that they have as well, where it's like none of the shows take place past the end of Game of Thrones. I mean, presumably the Jon Snow show would have. But it's all like, we're going to like fill in the gaps that you already know and go backwards.
It's kind of very similar to like problem, right? Where everything has to, all roads have to lead back to the 50 years of the Skywalker family. Even the Acolyte, for all of its for warts and all, eventually has to be like, no. I know it's like a little bit beforehand, but don't worry, this is connected. We're gonna show you this is connected to the Star Wars.
Ooh. How about that? Can I do that?
Yeah. You
Great.
can do
Yeah,
that. You can do big.
that's the problem with continuity is it makes the universe smaller. Like instead, like
Yeah.
the thing I used to love about franchises like say Star Trek or whatever was that everyone made the universe bigger. Whereas like Picard would go off and he'd be doing his own thing and he'd meet new aliens that Kirk had never met. And I'd be like, wow, the Star Trek universe is so big. And Deep Space Nine, I'd be like, oh, let's delve into the politics. I'm like, oh, this universe is so deep. And then, no, Eric, that is not the show I'm referencing. But also, but now, sorry, that was, I apologize, Eric. But like you constantly have like everything has to be something you've seen before. And you can put back up the image now, Eric, where it has to be things that you recognize and things that you are familiar with. And it has to take place within the established confines and boundaries of this fictional universe as already defined, which like just makes everything smaller and more like appropriate enough for the show we're talking about, incestuous.
Yeah.
Where like the thing in like House of the Dragon is that that like it's driven by, and this is a new addition to like the show that it was not in the source material, driven by a prophecy that's just like, hey, there's a really cool thing that's gonna happen in a couple of 100 years, like a game of like royal seats, and you want to be sure that like everything that you're doing now with this home of fire breathing creatures is going to lead to that board game of seats. That's like it's so like even something that is already tied to Game of Thrones by taking place in the universe using like replicas of the same sets, 3D printed kind of models of the props. Like everything that is clearly within the world of Game of Thrones still has to be like, but you guys remember Game of Thrones. And like, it was 5 years ago. Like,
wow. Yeah. And I guess that's still that same problem that we've been talking about. It's just we're just circling just IP fracking. I don't know if that is your coinage, Darren, or if that is just general consensus, but that is the word I will be using from now on.
I think cultural fracking, has been used a bit. I've seen it once or twice in the wild. So yeah,
love it.
I will say there's not like one of my favorite shows this year. It's not the best, but a thing I really enjoyed week to week was Presumed Innocence on Apple TV Plus, which is based off. Yeah, exactly, and it's based off. There's the book that got turned into a 1990 movie by Alan Pakula.
Sidney Lumet? Pakula, yeah.
Yeah, Pakula, that Harrison Ford was the star of, and great Brian Dennehy performance. Let me see. Dennehy pops up in your movie. I'm there for it.
Yes.
Yeah, Dennehy. But this series was, it took the 2-hour movie and turned it into 8 45-minute episodes of Jake Gyllenhaal playing like a top prosecutor in Chicago, who his colleague gets brutally murdered, and it turns out that everyone's like, I think it might have been you who did it, dude, because you were having an affair with her and you were there that night and you're kind of a weird dude, so you're going to go on trial for this murder. And every episode does a really great job of, well, it's got just like a stellar cast across the across the board. Like you have Peter Sarsgaard as like the rival attorney.
I see Bill Camp in the photo there. Yeah.
Oh my God, Bill Camp is so good. He plays the Dennehy
Bill
character.
Camp is so good.
He's even better than Dennehy. Even better than Dennehy. Bill Camp, a modern day Dennehy. But
remember when he played God in The Leftovers? Like, and that was you were just good. Like, that's good casting. It's like God is a very hard role to cast, but like Bill Camp is like, yeah, I got it.
Oh yeah, on the
boat with the lion. Yeah, it's like I got to read on this character, and it's like really, it's like yeah.
But I love that every episode by the end of it, it's like it feels like a summer page turner to where every episode has a twist at the end where you're like, oh. A, I got to watch the next episode, and B, I think I know who did it, and now it's someone else. And it does a great job of every hour in the 8 hours, you're pointing a finger at someone else before it lands the plane with like a cool twist. And I was like, oh, this is like really enjoyable. And so that is technically, cultural IP fracking, but like feels a little different, right? And it does something so different than the 2 hour very buttoned up movie. Whereas this feels like with so much more like energy and kind of silliness than the movie had.
The Fall Guy, though, right? Technically IP fracking, but no one really remembers the other one.
Yeah.
I will say I was on the radio, and the radio show host remembered it, which made me, again, it's nice to feel young when you're an Irish film critic. This gives me a sense of like the generational divide, where they're like, yeah, that was the Lee Majors TV show. It's like, yeah, I had that in my notes. I didn't think you guys would get that one.
It was important. Yeah.
And they were like, hey, we have the theme song here ready to go, Darren. We're ready to cue you out.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
We have the theme song.
obviously like a big hit in Ireland. We love our Lee Majors. We only had one TV channel, to be fair, for most of our history. But yeah, like there is obviously a difference there, because you could argue that Oppenheimer is technically that because it's an adaptation of a book, which is the American Prometheus. But yeah, like it's wild that like Apple are like quietly, consistently the best of like the streaming service. Where like I think we talked about this before, every like show on Apple has a reason to exist. Where even something I don't like with apologies to Nick, See, for example, the movie where Jason Momoa is like a blind man in a world of blind people who has to protect the two orphans who can see, if you will. Like,
no, you don't need to apologize to Nick. You don't need to apologize to Nick. Yeah, that's a dumb premise. That's all right.
I don't get it. Like I'm not like I see what this I see what this is. You know, I'm not like that's an itch I need scratched. But I'm watching it. It's very clear that like, look, the writer clearly has put a lot of thought into this. This is something somebody cared about, something somebody nurtured and loved and fed, and like was like, I need to get this vision out into the world. But everything on Apple is like that. Where like obviously things like Slow Horses is like that. We talked about like Severance is a quiet breakout, but because Apple doesn't generally have IP. Like the one thing it doesn't have is a big IP library, unlike say Disney Plus, unlike say, you know, HBO, unlike even say Universal. Like Apple don't have a big pool of IP to draw from. So they are taking these risks and being like, let's hire creators to make these shows. And now they've just announced that actually, you know what, we're not going to make as many of them anymore because nobody's watching them. Which is
like, spent a lot of money on sugar, and no one's talking about sugar except the weirdos who are like, damn, sugar got weird in the back half.
Yeah, like there's this one podcast, The Rewind, where they just keep talking about sugar. They're saying they're sugar pilled, I believe is what they're calling it.
Yeah, sugar pilled. Yeah. Got a little sweet tooth.
Yeah. By the way, Sugar, not a great show, but as you said, another fun show, a highly watchable show.
Yeah, real fun to talk about.
Yeah.
Any
like
show where you could get halfway into it and be like, I think the main character might be a werewolf. and it's a plausible, it is not a werewolf show at all. And you being able to be like, I think the main character might be a werewolf, and that's like a solid theory. That's a good show in my book.
Yeah, and if the show did turn out that he was a werewolf, you'd be like, I think they landed the plane. Like it's great. Like, yeah, like, it's like, is he a robot? Is he a vampire? Is he a werewolf? Is he in a coma? Like you're watching Sugar, and there are so many possibilities to explain what is happening, and it's so delightful. And it, you know, not great. I'm going to be honest, like not a perfect show, not going to be my top 10 shows of the year, but I'm glad that it exists, and I had great fun watching it. Which is, what more do you want from that sort of television show? You know.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Jack, have you watched anything before we get on over to all those supper chats?
A few things. Like I caught up on I don't know if we've talked about the Fallout show. We probably talked about that a couple weeks ago, but I loved the Fallout show. Just the other night, I have both Nick and Jesse Schwab staying with me here in Milwaukee to do the Animal Well doc, and we ran out of things to watch, and so I said, F it, let's watch Madam Web. And we had a great time watching Madam Web. Not the worst thing I've ever seen. I'm going to put that out there. Not
a lot of things filmed on a location, I will say.
Not terrible.
Yeah. A diner, it's like, it feels like you went into a diner to film this. Well done.
Yeah. And you probably had a taxi cab. The taxi cab that hit the diner feels like it was a real taxi cab.
It's, not a good movie, but it's a fine watch. It was a fine watch. I enjoyed watching it more than Deadpool Wolverine is what I will say. Mostly because it was shorter.
Like Dakota Johnson figuring out how to open a can of Pepsi. Like it's possibly like the most perfect product placement I've ever seen, because what you really want is a moment where your character is handed something that like a sponsor presumably paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for you to include in the movie, and go, what the fuck is this? I want a fucking beer. Like that is exactly the vibe you want when you pay to have Pepsi product placement.
Listen, Pepsi got their money's worth because Pepsi killed the main villain. Like nothing else matters. If you pay so much that your product can be responsible for defeating the bad guy, you win in my book. Yeah. By the way, as a little plug to our Discord here at Second Wind, over in the Rewind channel, in our Second Wind Discord, I have shared a link to my lovely Summer Blockbuster spreadsheet. If you would like to dig through it, I've been kind of updating it as you talk about House of the Dragon, because I don't care about Game of Thrones.
Which of us is truly the poorer for that, Jack?
Fair. Here's a weird one. This won't be a big field of discussion, but I went to Tubi the other day because I love Tubi as a channel. Is a million movies on it. I went to Tubi the other day and I was just gonna, find a movie to watch and stick it on in the background. And lo and behold, there was a Tubi original, and I didn't know Tubi did original movies. A Tubi original movie called
No, go.
Called Spread. Is this what you were thinking? No. Okay.
No, I was thinking of the Joe Dirt 2, but that's a Crackle original. Sorry.
Big, huge difference. Wow. What a
I know. To confuse Tubi and Crackle. They're entirely different brands. Sorry, go ahead there.
No. So Spread is the Tubi original comedy about someone unwittingly getting a job at a Playboy type porno magazine and having to balance whether or not they like having a job versus working for a place that they feel kind of uncomfortable. Harvey Keitel is in it. That poor man should not be in it. He is far too old.
Is in it. Wow. The big two.
Yeah.
Diedrich Bader.
Diedrich Bader is in it. Yeah.
Wow.
You got Diedrich. But I watched the whole thing because I, in general, do not stop watching movies unless I have a visceral reaction to them. So I watched the whole thing. And here is the crazy part. It was a perfectly fine, incredibly low budget, like little romantic comedy movie. And I know like those movies don't exist on large scales anymore. And part of me was really rooting for this movie because it's like, oh, if Tubi's going to make silly little rom-coms with dildo jokes in them, I'm kind of down with that. So to be fair, it is not great. The lack of budget shows through every aspect, but if you can deal with micro budget filmmaking, it's fine. It's a fine little rom-com.
I feel like we should launch a new podcast called To Be Fair. That's just your Tubi recommendation of the day.
Can we?
And it's something that's like kind of lukewarm. It's nothing you can like super recommend. Like, to be fair, there's worse ways to spend 90 minutes than Harvey Keitel's Spread.
By the way, that's the episode in 2 weeks. Go to Tubi and we'll just find some Tubi recommendations and it'll be called To Be Fair. I'm writing that idea down already.
I feel like when Tubi greenlight a movie, it's dildo or die. But anyway.
Oh, that's really good. Vintage Tubi.
I've seen a couple other movies, but they I think they have to do with super chats later, so I'm going to save them for super chat talk.
Great. Let's jump on some of these super chats because I'm sure we'll have little tangents here. Thank you everyone who's submitted super chats throughout the episode. Greatly appreciate. Obviously, your memberships, your patronage, your super chats to help keep the lights on. Help us make dumb things like To Be Fair, which may or may not become a thing. It's very possible. Jack wrote it down, so it's possible it becomes a thing.
I think that is a great idea for a little podcast. Yeah.
Quintuple A, thank you so much for the $2 don. Now, Darren, congrats on Ireland's 3 gold medals so far. Have you guys been watching the Olympics at all? Any Olympic fever?
No.
I've been watching a little bit. I'll watch a little Simone Biles just literally flip through the air like a goddamn superhero. I think it's exciting. I'll see the cool people who do gun shooting and just look like the coolest people who ever existed. Yeah.
The guy who looked like he just wandered in off the street, picked up the gun cold, and just won a gold medal.
Yeah. The girl with the crazy
the girl who looks like a Netflix movie villain. Yes.
The second I saw her, I was like, Kojima's gonna get her inside his soul sucking machine. The next morning, Kojima retweets the picture, and I'm like, guarantee next time she's in Tokyo. I mean, she's literally.
She's Korea, isn't she? South Korea?
No, she said no. I'm sorry, the Olympics aren't in Tokyo. The Olympics are in Paris.
Oh yeah,
Paris. Yeah.
I've
been catching
Korean,
memes. She's what? Korean?
South Korean, right?
Korean.
South
Yes,
Korean,
yes.
Yeah.
Like I've been catching the memes of the gymnast who is sponsored by the concept of Parmesan cheese. Love it.
And all those photo shoots that she does with them, which all her publicity photos involve a roll of Parmesan.
No company, just cheese. That's great. Thank you, Eric. I mean, listen, the big Olympic news is the best. If you're going to lose at the Olympics, the best way to lose is because your dick is too big. Love that. Love that for him.
Yeah. What a humble way to lose. Truly.
You guys know about they did do the Seine thing. They did swim in the Seine. And you had that joke. It was the American swimmer who was microdosing E. coli, or joked that he was microdosing E. coli to prepare for swimming in the Seine. But do you remember were you guys following this whole big news story where they were going to do the swimming in the Seine, which is one of the filthiest rivers in the world? And the mayor of Paris was like, "Look, we can clean this up, and I will prove it." I will swim in the Seine on a given day and I will prove how clean the water is, which led to, I believe, a website organized by, like, because of course the French don't do anything by half measures, a website where it was like, where do you live along the Seine? And at what time would you need to take a poop in order to make sure that the mayor of Paris was swimming in your feces?
That's beautiful.
At which point the mayor of Paris was like, I need to rearrange this swim.
Also, again, that is literally the premise of that shark movie Under Paris that hit Netflix a few months ago.
Shark to Triumph,
The mayor of Paris is like, we're going to hold the Olympic race in the Seine. And everyone's like, and they're like, no, there are so many sharks down there. You should not do it. And she's like, it'll be fine. And then they're swimming and she's like, oh, there's a ton of sharks. That was a bad idea.
So you mean not only could they have called it like Shark, was it Champs-Élysées Shark to Triumph? They could also call it Swing with Sharks, and it would have been just as apt.
It would have been beautiful. It would have been great. What a film. Snake in the Garden with a €2 dono. Thank you so much, Snake. Have you seen Kneecap yet? Not out here till the weekend. It sounds like this is an Irish movie.
It
is. You know about this Kneecap film?
Oh yeah, yes, it's playing in the indies in the art house theaters here in Milwaukee.
Oh,
Marty, come to Milwaukee. It's playing at the Downer.
I have COVID.
Oh shit, Marty, don't come to Milwaukee.
Why are you doing this if you have COVID?
That's what. But I love goofing. The only thing I love more than sleeping during COVID is goofing during COVID.
But yeah, so Kneecap is I've seen it. It's releasing in Ireland this week. Weirdly, it's releasing in the States before it released in Ireland. It's pretty good. It's really charming. It's got a nice visual energy to it. It is obviously the story in inverted commas about the formation of the Irish hip hop like band Kneecap, starring Michael Fassbender, which is just a wonderful get for them. I am so happy for them. It is incredibly charming. It's incredibly irreverent. It's incredibly goofy. It maybe doesn't quite support the mythic weight that it puts on it, where it's a movie by the band Kneecap, about the band Kneecap, about how they single-handedly saved the Irish language and culture. And I'm like, I feel like you don't get to do that in the movie that you make about yourselves, but you are just about charming enough that I'll let it go this once.
They absolutely do. If Prince can make Purple Rain, Kneecap can make Kneecap. Yeah.
Yeah, fair.
I feel like they might not be on the same level. Prince and Kneecap might not be on the same level of pop culture significance, but who am I?
But no, it's fun. It's irreverent. It has a nice visual energy to it, and it's a very easy watch. To be fair, I had a good time with it.
There you go.
Great.
Michael Fassbender. What a great guy.
There you go.
Pure Pyro with a €2 dono. Thank you so much. How was Dick Tracy? Also, thoughts on Scarface? Yeah, Dick Tracy was the last movie we watched during our...
Tracy, he's a good cop.
That's the theme song of the 60s Dick Tracy show. It is literally the only line in the theme song is Dick Tracy, he's a good cop. And it sounds like they recorded it once in like a not soundproof room whatsoever. They were like, we're just going to keep going.
Good enough.
Yeah, it was the last movie we did for our monthly movie night with our Phoenix tier Patreon pals. We watched it last week. We talked about it a little bit at the beginning. I thought it was delightful. Like, that is a movie that is just oozing with style. Doesn't make a lot of sense. And it is, again, one of those, like we were talking about the 90s, where it's like, why are we nostalgic for the 30s? I mean, I guess maybe that's just, we're always nostalgic for 60 years before. But
it's also the wrong lesson. Like, it's that thing we joked about where like movie studios learn the wrong lesson, where Batman is the biggest grossing movie of the year. And they're like, the logical brain there is like, people want more superhero movies. It's been a while since we did Superman. We can start a new wave of comic book movies. And like executives are like, 1930s pulp heroes.
Yeah, he is a good cop, isn't he?
He is a good guy. Yeah, no, it was a wonderful watch. I'm actually like, that is like my next planned, like, have people over movie night for my house because I have the Blu-ray. What a delightful picture. Scarface, I've never had much love for. Only like, I've seen it, I enjoyed it, but then when you go to film school or go to college in general, everyone likes Scarface a little too much. So you pull back a little bit.
Isn't that the joke on Trainwreck where there's like, please don't have a Scarface poster on the wall. Please don't have a Scarface poster.
I when I was in middle school or high school, when I really started getting into movies, and I was like, all right, all the old classic crime movies. I watched it again. I was like, this is pretty good. It just, to me, it was never nearly as good as, not even like your Goodfellas and Godfathers and everything, but never as good as like Casino or Carlito's Way or sort of that even that level. So
and by the time I saw like Miller's Crossing was already out, so I was fuck this, Cohen's got it, never mind.
yeah
Even as far as like De Palma movies go, like it's No Untouchables.
Untouchables.
Or it's,
absolutely.
or like Blowout or Carrie or whatever. Like I like it a lot. I think it's incredibly charming. As you said, there is that certain weird shadow where people not that they like it too much, but they like it too intensely is the thing where like it's not like it's not the amount of love, but it's the force with which that love manifests itself in conversation that makes you go, I like it. Yeah, I
like
do.
if you had the talk about who is a little too much into Fight Club, and you're like, it's a good movie. We should not do a Fight Club. Yeah,
we should not start a cocaine empire in Miami in the 1980s. That said, like the Push It to the Limit montage is one of the great moments in American cinema.
Good stuff.
There you go.
Lamb Slaughter, welcome to the tip jar. Thank you so much, Lamb Slaughter. And then Cleverly Dope with a $5 dono. Here's some more. Here with some more movie propaganda. If you're reading this, please watch Steve McQueen's Widows, one of the best movies of the 2010s. I loved Widows. I thought it was great, and it is sort of a shame to me that this movie wasn't bigger, because it has just an incredible cast. It is like a very tight thriller. I really liked it. Gorgeous representation of Chicago.
Well, that great scene that great shot from the outside of Colin Farrell's car when they're driving from one.
You go from one neighborhood to the other, and you feel like the literal gentrification of the city. You can
in
feel
real
it
time, like.
Shot.
It's incredible. Like it reminds me a lot of, say, Gone Girl, where it is this kind of like pulpy like source material, but it's incredibly well directed. It's got this incredible performance through it. It's just such a delight. It's kind of movie where you would used to get like 10 of these a year in the 90s, and now you get it, and it's incredible. And like the performance in Nerf, Daniel Kaluuya in this is amazing. Not to single out like one individual performer among a cast that is just generally fantastic, but that scene with like the long take and the beatboxing and the spinning camera, in the gym, like it's incredible. Yeah. It's just an incredible.
Use the little Dennehy, but
my one note is that like it stars Robert Duvall. Is that not enough for you?
I like a Duvall. He's no Dennehy though.
Duvall's no Dennehy.
Racist shotgun wielding Duvall. Like, what more do you want?
Dennehy. I think we've been pretty clear about this, Darren.
Fair,
Oh wait, Jack, tell Darren what Tommy Boy was originally called. Speaking of Dennehy.
I forget how I went down this rabbit hole the other day. We talked about this a little bit on the podcast yesterday. What I did, I went down a rabbit hole, kind of looking at the origins of Tommy Boy, which is a much beloved movie. Chris Farley
and Chris Farley,
Chris Farley, originally from Wisconsin, and Dennehy's in it. The original script, the screenplay for that was called Billy the Third, a Midwestern. And apparently it was a script that was so bad, that was so terrible. The person who ended up directing the movie originally passed on it. He was someone who worked for SNL, passed on the movie because he had too many notes on the script. The studio then took it to every other single working director in Hollywood, who all passed on it, only to go back to the original SNL director to say, fine, what are your notes? The movie essentially had to be completely rewritten from the bottom up. And of course, it is Tommy Boy, which is a phenomenal piece of work. But Billy the Third, a Midwestern, was the original script. And I think that is delightful.
What a movie. Sovereign, €5 dono. Thank you so much, Sovereign. Watched Rebel Moon's director's cut yesterday for my sins. Any opinion on that whole R-rated, quote, true version thing Netflix pulled? I think it is very silly when a director has full control over a movie at every step, and then it is very manipulative to be like, here is finally my true vision. You're like, what are we doing here?
I mean, again, my man to this is probably very similar to what happens with other studios, where it's just nice for a studio to have something they can initially release that is PG-13 and audience friendly. I honestly don't mind. Like I don't love these movies. I haven't watched the second one yet, which is probably not a great endorsement of it.
Scargiver?
That's all you need to know.
That's the second one. Because I love the fact that the four of them have different names. That if you're a casual person wandering through Netflix, you assume they are 4 different movies, not 2 different versions of 2 different movies.
Yeah,
which is a wonderful marketing touch. But yeah, I'm just like, again, it's the Napoleon thing with Joaquin Phoenix, where it's like I can understand Apple being like, you initially released this version. You're not Martin Scorsese. You don't get to set the terms and say you want a 3-hour like complete creative freedom or rated whatever. I get, I am more sympathetic than a lot of people seem to be about this, because I understand that like Netflix are a studio to a certain extent, and just because they're not initially releasing in theaters doesn't mean that they're not operating according to similar constraints. And I'm not saying that they coerced him, but I it is like we would like a PG-13 version, and then afterwards you can do an R-rated one.
It's just such a bad. It's such a bad movie to begin with. I don't understand how. I don't understand how Zack Snyder can think his movies are good in general, but that's a very different topic. But I don't think how he is genuinely thinking, if only I could get more bloods and tits into this, then it salvages it.
This will fix everything.
This will fix everything. In the YouTube chat real quick is I linked to clips from the podcast Inside of You, which is hosted by the guy who used to play Lex Luthor on Smallville.
Yeah. Michael Russbaum, isn't it? Is it
Michael Russbaum, with the director of Tommy Boy, Peter Siegel, or Segal, talking about his time with Tommy Boy, which is where I discovered this information. Watch both interviews. Lovely. I saw someone say "fat guy in a little coat," which was apparently "Fat Guy in a Little Coat" was a bit that Chris Farley and David Spade would just do around the SNL offices. And there's a great little story in there about that bit in particular. So watch those after you're done here. There you go.
Yeah. And then tune into my podcast, Dennehy's, where it's me and Brian Dennehy sitting down and talking about the movie Den of Thieves every week.
Oh, nice. Are you in
I'm
a
not
den?
sure. Brian Dennehy might be dead, so I don't know if this podcast
no, he is dead. Like, I mean, he absolutely is dead. That's because that's the only thing that would prevent that podcast from happening.
Other than
that,
that,
the only barrier to entry.
We'll call him friend of the show. I feel like he would have been a friend of the show had he not passed away.
If he had not passed away and was aware that the show existed, he would probably be a friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
Yeah.
Red Door for the $5 dono. Thank you so much. At least we got some use out of watching terrible 2000s comic book movies. Was it one of those things like we watched Elektra and we were like, listen, this is going to pay off. How's it going to pay off? Oh, she's going to show up for like 5 minutes in a movie in like 20 years.
Yeah.
But it's going to pay off. Like, are any events of this movie going to be referenced? No. It's just going to be the character. She's going to kind of reference her relationship with Ben Affleck, but other than that, no.
If we're being cynical about it, like that is the net benefit here is like somebody, not me, but somebody watched that movie and was like, I need to go home and on Disney Plus watch Elektra tonight. Mm-hmm. Like that is the selling point of this. And like I do wonder if that is a large part of the what I call spreadsheet movies. And you can argue like the Lego movie is an example of it done well. Like they don't have to be bad. No Way Home is like a passable example of this. Space Jam: The New Legacy is awful. The Flash is awful. Deadpool and Wolverine is not for me. But like these things that are like, look at all the cool shit we own. And it's designed to go, well, it's also, it's not a movie, it's an advertisement for the streaming service where like you go home and now you can watch Elektra because now Elektra is on Disney Plus for whatever reason. Like, is that a genuine selling point for these movies at a corporate level where it's like we can convince people to watch the two Tim Story Fantastic Four movies because they've seen Chris Evans and Deadpool and Wolverine. So like that's the thing with this year, the two most successful, again, streaming, who knows what the numbers actually are, but according to like Parrot Analytics and according to Nielsen, according to Outside Observers, the two most successful Star Wars movies on Disney Plus were Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. And that was driven by the re-release of Phantom Menace. After people went out to see Phantom Menace. Now, obviously, we don't know for a fact they did it, but around the time of the release of Phantom Menace, there was a huge surge of people watching Attack of the Clones and people watching Revenge of the Sith. So, like, there is this sense of if you remind people of this, just instinctively you will get them to go back and like spend more time on the service. And that's what you want, because if they're spending more time on the service, they're going to say subscribe to it. So maybe that's a factor. I don't know how big a factor it is, but maybe it's a factor.
They should have put Willow in the movie so that they'd have to put Willow back.
Right? So they could bring the show back. Yeah. Or release it on, VHS for me. I do think that is probably one of the things that helped kind of okay the budget is like, oh yeah, well, like we're within the family now. And so we're okay with that. I think there is a nostalgia thing to okay in the budget. My forever issue is just the way in which they handled it had nothing to do with the story at large, where it's like, if they would have used that as a commentary for like the awkward years of the superhero movie of like, yeah, we didn't really know what we were doing then. If they would have used it as a commentary to help propel a stronger, focused story forward, sure, but they were just there. I love Blade. I love Blade and Blade.
I do love Blade.
Yeah.
I wish that like when Blade appears in this movie, he repeats the line "Some motherfucker's trying to ice skate uphill," like he knows that that's his catchphrase, as opposed to something that he said one time and it was cool. Like, why not just have him say something from Wesley Snipes' Twitter feed? Because that's where the like "some motherfuckers always trying to ice skate uphill" is famously something that he said while he was getting blazed in his Winnie, and David S. Goyer was like, "Okay, it's in the script." Like,
and he was a little iffy about putting it in the script. He's like, I don't know if that makes sense. And David S. Goyer said, "No, this is in the movie. Trust me." Also, it's very upsetting that the sword he uses isn't Blade's sword, right? Like for anyone else, like he used like a little machete. That was very, very upsetting.
That's the story of Blade's sword will be delved into
6-part Disney Plus series
Harrington film. Black Blade, or what's his name? No, not Black Blade.
Black Knight.
Black Knight.
Oh my God.
Black Blade. Let's see what's going on here.
Well, I mean, keep in mind that was a Martin Lawrence movie, Black Knight, wasn't it? Back in the like 1999
where it's
or
like
early
a Connecticut Yankee.
Yeah. Like, but part of me is also like, there was a time where Marvel was so successful, like they were so high on their own laurels, that they could have conceivably released like a late July movie just called The Black Knight, starring Kit Harington, and like just done it as a piss take of Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight and been like, look at how much money we make. And nobody knew who this character was. Nobody's going to remember who this character is in 2 months, but it's going to make $1 billion.
Hey, at least Eternal was shot on places. Yeah, they used sunlight, and Kevin Feige was like, "What is going on? I could do that with a camera."
The Disney board called me into them immediately, and were like, "Shut this down." That is actually the story he tells. I had to convince like the other managers that this was cool. It's like,
we live in a dumb timeline. Proud Hand with $5 Australian. Thank you so much. Counterpoint for Picard. They wanted to bring back those who didn't watch 1 and 2. I didn't watch the first 2, and I loved that Picard in season 3.
I did not care for the 3rd season of Picard, and it's probably best to leave it at that, to be diplomatic. I didn't really care for the 2nd season of Picard. Like, Marty, you edited my reviews at The Escapist. You know my feelings about the 2nd season of Star Trek Picard, which was written by the same people who wrote the 3rd season of Star Trek Picard, and is, I would argue, of a similar quality, because it is produced by similar people operating on a similar basis with similar impulses driving them. And the difference between the two is that one of them stars people that you recognize. But sorry, I said that I was like, I'm going to leave it at that, and I should have left it at that. I apologize.
You like that animated series? You seem to like it. Lower Decks?
I like Lower Decks. I'm oddly charmed by Lower Decks. Like, I find Lower Decks incredibly charming in places, because it is nostalgia. It's pure nostalgia, but it doesn't pretend that it's like, it doesn't expect me to cry earnest tears at that thing that I recognized. It's just like, hey, isn't it weird living in the Star Trek universe? And even then I say, like, you know, the Lower Deck show is still not like one of my top 5 Star Trek shows. And there have only been, 9 Star Trek shows? So that's where we are.
Am I right? I don't know anything about
Deep
Star
Space
Trek.
Nine. Yeah,
There's
good call. This is my
Nine.
editor. This is my editor speaking right here. Yep, Deep Space Nine and The Next Generation are the top 2 easily.
That is a show.
Yeah, good call. Yeah,
someone knows that. SBS Guru with a €5 dono. Thank you so much. At least they gave the Gambit a character and something to do instead of being a horrific CGI Nick Cage. That is true. He did have. I don't know if they gave him a character, but he did have something to do, and he did say lines, unlike Nick Cage in The Flash.
Yeah, and he was physically
like a
on
reanimated
set.
Corpse. Yeah,
but
yeah, he was.
My zoom out my zoom out big level question for you: is that actually any better? They are essentially the same thing. Gambit is not a character in Deadpool Wolverine. He is a caricature of a story that we've heard about a failed production. He has no motivations. He has, he is wearing, an outfit reminiscent of the comic books or the animated series. He is nothing but a headline from a gossip magazine. That is his character in that movie. They are essentially the same. So I apologize, but I heartily disagree with that statement.
Oh, people gonna remember that you said that about the Gambit. It's my Gambit. It's not very good.
I do like.
It's better than mine. It's better than mine.
I do like that actor. I can never remember which name his first name is. I don't remember. They both sound like first names.
I believe the kids call them C-Tates. I mean, like, the thing is, though, you could have inserted anybody in there. Like, you could have put Dougray Scott in there, for example, and it would have served. Like, there is nothing really that specific about the character, and it's like, if I want to see what Channing Tate's Gambit is like, if Gambit, if he deserves a shot, that shot should be his own movie in which he has his own character, in which he has a clear arc, in which the viewpoint of that character is clearly expressed. Rather than, as you said, a collection of like iconography that I remember and can point at and go, oh, I know where that's from. I know what that's referencing. And like, that is the weird thing where it's like, the inside baseballness of this, and I think it's a great point you raised, Jack, just it's insane that it's like, it used to be that you could just go and see a movie and you didn't even have to see the previous movie in the franchise. You could just jump in and follow it straight away. It was designed to be accessible, right? Mm-hmm. And now, eventually you have to see all the movies in the franchise and, okay, that's grand. See the previous movies in the series. Then it's like you have to see all the other connected comic book movies. We have to see like the Thor movies and the Captain America movies to understand the Iron Man movies or whatever. And now it's gotten to the stage where in order to understand the Deadpool movie, you not only need to have seen all the Deadpool movies, all the Marvel movies, all the Fox movies, you also, as you said, need to refresh the Wikipedia page listed unmade Fox X-Men projects. Like it's so weird. It's just like where we are as a culture. It's very
yes.
And Blade 3 on-set controversy and
right. Which like
articles
for the
that have been dropped from the internet.
Like for the vast majority of us who like in general watch YouTube videos and discussions and like movies, we have access to all that information and probably know it, to be very, very fair. But it should not be a prerequisite to enjoying jokes in a movie.
Also, gonorrhea is not a punchline. It's just not like I'm defending. This sounds like I'm like, gonorrhea is not a joke, guys. I just mean it's not funny when your punchline is.
Marty really stands up. No, Marty stands up and like Eric just expands it, and you walk over to a white wall set, and you're like, gonorrhea, kids, we've had some jests today. We've had some goofs and spoofs.
Let's wrap. Gonorrhea. I sit backwards in a chair.
No, like I as someone who just enjoys comedy, the jokes were also paced incredibly horribly. The montage of visiting all of the different Wolverines in the different universes. Okay, we get comics accurate Wolverine. That's okay, we have a very funny joke. And then we get like 18 different iconic Wolverine covers as remade as different and then we get Henry Cavill, and it's just like that joke goes on for so long. It is not funny anymore. Give it like the rules of 3. No, fuck it. The rules of 15 minutes, because we have a montage to do. There's a lot I don't like about this movie.
Too much TV with a $5 dono. Thank you so much. When Logan stabs the antimatter, I guess spoilers for the end of Deadpool.
Oh, sorry.
When Logan stabs the antimatter power source and grabs Deadpool, my friend goes, quote, "The power of one, the power of two, the power of many." That was an Acolyte thing, right? That's what the witches said in Acolyte.
Yeah.
Fucking put it.
It's a good Guardians of the Galaxy had a great ending as well. I really like the ending of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
I like what Disney did it the first time.
You mean like when the Guardians of the Galaxy like tied their big action ending to the overarching theme of the entire story, the thing we've been building to the entire time? Or do you mean when we got to see Hugh Jackman as a very muscular, skinny man with very nice abs? Which, yes, he looks fantastic.
Also, let him
have a chocolate bar, have some carbs. Like, yeah.
Like he's
don't make him dehydrate himself.
Don't make him do that. What are we doing?
And he didn't even get to do a musical number. Like, that's the thing that really disappoints me. Is that like this is like we're celebrating having Hugh Jackman back, and it's like give him $1 billion musical number.
Yeah, have one of the Wolverines like bust out into song in a bar. Yeah.
Yeah. Do it over the credits. Like have the closing credits be like I am Wolverine from like the Oscars in 2009, whenever it was he did it,
Yeah.
Okay. Last gripe for Wolverine and Logan. Here's my last. No. This is it right coming up.
I'm glad that I'm not the most negative on the movie.
When he puts on the Logan mask, I think it looks dumb. I think it looked really dumb.
It's also CGI.
I did not like it. I did not like it one bit. I thought that looked really stupid.
I just think there are certain things that work, and I think the color, the yellow is totally fine. I think the mask just, at least that mask does not work. And maybe it's the CG thing, but maybe there's just something in comics. I also thought Gambit looked a little silly, and I like how his character looks in Batman or in X-Men the animated series and everything.
Yeah. I like some things work well in comics because they're designed in such a way. And they also generally work well in animation because they're designed in particular ways. And live action and it's different things. Like the thing about the Wolverine costume that really galls me well, two things. First of all, sorry, I hate that we're like harping on about this. Two things that really gall me. First thing is they build an entire arc around the costume, right? So the entire, like, Wolverine's relationship to the costume is pretty much the essence of his character, aside from he's kind of like the one from Logan, but he's not technically the one from Logan, so don't get upset, nerds. But like, there's a whole thing of like, what does the costume represent, right? So does the costume represent his shame? Does he wear that costume as a reminder that he failed Charles? In which case his arc is beginning ashamed and wearing the costume, and at the end taking off the costume and feeling like freed of the shame that he has? Or is his arc, oh my God, I'm not worthy of the costume. I'm not worthy of Charles. I'm not worthy of the X-Men. In which case he starts not wearing the costume and ends wearing the costume. And the movie's like, we'd just rather he wore the costume all the time. So there's just no clear like what the costume is. It is both his guilt and shame and something he is very proud of, which is not how that is not how storytelling works. And the other thing with the costume very quickly is like, it's yellow, but it's also just body armor. It's like it's an average superhero costume. It's like the post 9/11 body armor. They just painted it colors. Like, it is so strange that it's like people are like, this is like comics accurate Wolverine. It's like, it's just like Christopher Nolan's Batman with a paint job. Like, it's an Iron Man costume. It has like the detailing is like just a body armor kind of thing, as opposed to a superhero costume. Like the superhero costumes in First Class look more like superhero costumes than this. But sorry, that is my rant. I apologize.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We're gonna get through this.
I like that costume. I like that costume.
I also liked the I really like the ochre costume. Like the small cameo he has in the brown and black. Like, looks much better. I know that's a CGI costume, but because it's not body armor, it's like a jumpsuit. It just looks better on him.
Was that like X-Men Evolution's costume, I think?
That was John Byrne. I think they explicitly shout out John Byrne when they're talking about it. It's when he fights the Hulk. But yeah, it's the brown. It's like literally when
that one did look very nice. Yeah, I agreed.
Yeah.
Fought the Hulk.
Yeah. Well, he started out. He was introduced as a Hulk villain. Like, Wolverine began as a Hulk.
No, in the movie he fought the Hulk. I don't remember.
Yeah,
it's like for like 1 second. It's like it's not like fights. Okay, They're like in a forest or something. Okay.
That was during the way too long montage of just
the Power of Love montage.
Yeah. You had the one where he didn't have the hands, the one where he was crucified. Okay,
yeah.
The short one.
So the Age of Apocalypse, the short one, and
that's
then
right.
The like Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri, Chris Claremont 90s one,
Yeah, in the alley. There you go.
Yeah.
Joe Chapeau with the $2 dono. Thank you so much. Message redacted. Thanks, Joe. Even though you had a low redaction. Lamb Slaughter back with a £5 dono. Thank you so much. Went to see Kinds of Kindness Saturday evening. 8 people walked out. I thought it was great, but I'd primed myself with the lobster beforehand.
Love Kinds of Kindness so much. Like, it is again a great summer movie.
That movie.
Yeah. I will say one of my favorite experiences is going to see Bones and All, which is like, this is not a spoiler. It's the first 5 minutes of the movie, but it's a movie about cannibalism. And like beforehand, when they did the introduction of it, like the people who are hosting the screening were like, look, we want you to be aware, this is a very intense movie. You may feel a bit uncomfortable what happens. And kind of incredibly, like, so there's a sequence in the first 2 minutes where the actor, I can't remember her name, but she basically, is it Taylor Russell? But she bites somebody's finger and she eats the finger off. And it's very graphic and it's very
something, right?
At a sleepover, yeah. Like, again, this is not spoilers, first 2 minutes of the movie. But like this old woman with like the heaviest fur coat you can imagine stands up in the middle of the cinema and like makes a show of her disgust with the movie, putting her thing on while standing up and looking around at the audience as if to judge us, and like forcing her way out, not in like a bashful kind of, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry kind of way, just in like a make way. I want the entire cinema to recognize my disgust at the filth that they have on screen here. It was one of the most incredible movie-going experiences of my life.
Beautiful.
Good heavens. Falls on a fainting couch. George Lucas with a €2 dono. Thank you so much. I watched Men in Black 1,000,000 times. What a movie. I thought those were fun summer blockbusters too. Again, it got franchised into hell, but yeah, the time travel one.
3 is underrated, with Josh Brolin.
Josh Brolin, who plays a great Tommy Lee Jones. Like, holy moly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Men in Black lost to, hold on, it's in my notes, The Lost World, in fact, for summer blockbusters. Men in Black was number 2.
I think I like Men in Black more than The Lost World. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. I don't think that's a hot take. I don't think it's a hot take that Lost World not Spielberg's greatest movie. That said, it does have one of the greatest cuts in the history of cinema, which is the cut at
opening
the
with
start
the-
from like with
with
the
the-
screen
all the
with the Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
RW with a $5 dono. Thank you so much. Hey guys, love listening to the Rewind, and this is my first donation. Question: What do you guys feel about the TV series The Expanse? In my opinion, one of the best series. RW, have I got a gift for you? I'm putting it right here. You two did a little interview podcast back at The Escapist with one of the creators, right? With Ty Frank. Yeah, so I put the link there to that video. You can watch that, an hour-long chat with Ty Frank. With
one of the two original authors of Leviathan Down, which is the book that the series is based off of. Wonderful chat, wonderful interview. We spent most of that chat, I believe, talking just about Logan's Run, which was the greatest thing in the world.
This is why we are not professional interviewers, Jack. It's like we sent them on the press junket, and it's like we sent them on the Deadpool Wolverine, and they mostly end up talking about like the Atom Project. Yeah. Everybody just sat down and we're like, the Atom Project, that's pretty good, right?
You want to talk about the Atom Project?
Yeah,
nobody talks about the Atom Project.
It's one of those shows that kind of has a bit of a rocky start, finds its footing. It has some fantastic episodes and fantastic seasons, and then unfortunately an incredibly rushed ending, as they had to smush an entire book into like 2 episodes.
Because the show had been canceled, right? It had to switch.
And Amazon were like, "Don't worry, Business Daddy go and take care of you." And then it was immediately. It was like Business Daddy has decided that he has other priorities.
Yeah.
Business Daddy then found the boys.
Gambit would have been a great belter.
Yeah.
Put Channing Tatum's Gambit, make him a belter. Oh, mon ami, we're walking on the zero.
That is kind of like, there's like a belter language.
Yeah.
Kind of does sound Cajun. Yeah.
Business Daddy got to invest in the 2 most expensive TV shows ever made.
Its highs are like some of the highest highs of TV of the last 10 years, I would say. Like really
really phenomenal show.
Mm-hmm. Nicholas B, been in Green Gang for 5 months. Thank you so much. Blood clots are no joke, Jack. Take your thinners.
Well, yes, I'm not worried about actual blood clots. So I don't have blood thinners. I just have a very, very hurt foot. It is currently elevated. I don't like it elevated. Under my desk here is very hard to be elevated. Okay. So I'm going to move to the couch.
A couple more super chats, and then we're going to get you to a couch.
You haven't got it ankled properly, no?
Sucking fucking son of a bitch. Someone get him out.
He's so good.
Yes, hi freak with a £5 dono. Thank you so much. My cinema isn't accessible, so my summer blockbuster is the big dude with little glasses and a bow and arrow. Loved Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
Give a big guy a set of glasses. I haven't seen it yet, but that's Alan Rickson, who's there we go.
Oh yeah,
it's Jack Reacher.
And Henry Cavill fighting Nazis in Africa.
Is that a Matthew Vaughn or a Guy Ritchie?
I think it's Guy Ritchie. I think that's the thing. Like, it's weird that the two of them have kind of like replaced each other. Where
they're just Wario and Waluigi in my mind.
Yeah, Where like Guy Ritchie was the knockoff. Sorry, where at one stage Matthew Vaughn was the knockoff Guy Ritchie, and now Guy Ritchie is the knockoff Matthew Vaughn. But yeah, like it's Babs Akonda, the guy from Strange New Worlds, and the guy from Dune, isn't it? And he's great. He's like, I think he's a world champion. Is it jiu-jitsu champion? He's very good.
It's a very interesting movie. Yeah, it's based off of supposedly true stories. The Henry Cavill character is rumored to be what the original James Bond. The original James Bond was based off of.
Kind of Christopher Lee, right? His like
kind of Christopher Lee. Yeah. The movie itself feels, and this sounds okay. The movie is fine. It is a perfectly adequate, I'm going to say C+, B- action movie. You see buff dudes murdering Nazis. Everybody's happy, but it feels like the TV appropriate cut of Inglourious Bastards. With extra padding for time, where it just feels like really dry, watered down Inglourious Bastards at the end of the day. So fine, perfectly fine and adequate.
To watch it. Listen, if they're not going to make, if they're not going to give me a new Wolfenstein game, I'll watch this. And I'll just have a controller.
Overlord. Just watch Overlord. Instead.
Overlords are really good. Oh my god, Nazi zombies. Good as shit. Red Dwarf 2. Red Dwarf for the $2 dono. Thank you so much. I cannot wait till Oppenheimer 2 Electric Boogaloo. It's gonna happen. New sequel.
Oppenheimist, I think they would call it.
Ooh. Whoop-hoot. Thank you so much for the dono, Uput. Insert a good D's Nuts joke here. No such thing. That's an oxymoron. There's no such thing as a good D's Nuts joke.
D's Nuts.
No, not D's Nuts. We're not talking about D's Nuts. We're not D's Nuts. We're better than that. No, we're not better than that.
Hold on. Are you suggesting that the podcast needs a denutsification?
I don't even know what to do. Water Hazard gave us $10. I don't even know if I want to read it. After what you did. Just rude. Also, those are great looking nuts, and I'm very hungry. Eric put up actual nuts, not like gross.
Thank you, Eric.
Actual, like good-looking protein-filled nuts. Water Hazard with $10 dono. Thanks so much. Hot D season 2 should have kept pushing its format, like with the time skips or 2-part finale, rather than replicate Game of Thrones. Would have been fun to put all the Damon stuff into a singular spooky episode. I agree. That would have been a very cool one-off. Don't show anything else and just be like, here was my month at the spooky hotel, and here's what happened. Boy, did it suck.
They should do like a Mike Flanagan thing where it's just like day 1 and day 20.
That'd have been great.
Yeah,
that'd have been great. Josh Knowles with a $2 dono. Darren, have you ever seen the stop motion filled Mad God? That's the Phil Tippett movie that he spent like decades trying to make.
And they made it like a poker face, but I have not. It is on my list of movies to see.
Oh yeah,
not watched.
Oh yeah, I forgot
I've heard nothing but good things. Yeah, like which is very explicitly like you're like, what does Ryan Johnson know? But yes, it's on my list to see. I have not seen it. Everybody who's seen it raves about it. Yeah.
Just a technical marvel, and also like just like deeply unsettling visuals in like a really good way. Like get in the mood to be like, I want something that's gonna get under my skin, and I'm gonna feel like I need to take a hot shower afterwards.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
SBS Guru with a €5 dono. Thank you so much. Have any of you seen the parody movies by German filmmaker Billy Herbig, namely Shoe of Mantu and Traumschiff Parode 1?
No,
I've not. No, the only foreign parody movies I've seen, not American parody movies, not English, are the OSS 117. You know those, like the Bond parodies,
the ones that they made before they won the Oscar, the one that Michael
the artist
and
team,
like
right?
and John Dujardin made before they were like, let us win the Best Picture Oscar.
I think they're actually really funny. The two of them I've seen. They're like more vulgar French Austin Powers. Yeah, I don't know if they are.
They're horn. They're like if you ask the French to make Austin Powers, you're going to get something incredibly horny, baby.
I think I saw one of those parodies, but it was Parodies Nuts.
Oh, okay. So they're doing Star Trek.
Can we ban enough of us from the podcast that there's no podcast anymore? That it's just like, this is like the ship of Theseus, where there's just no podcast because all of us have been banned at some point. We need to end soon so we can get lunch and so I can piss.
Yeah. And you have COVID.
And I have COVID. Raxelius with a $5 dono. Thank you so much. Darren, I fully support your feelings on Picard Season 3. It was terrible.
Thank you. I mean, look, I'm glad people enjoy it. I'm not. If somebody enjoys it and I don't, who is the winner here? The person who enjoyed it. Like, I take no joy in not liking things, but also at the same time, I can't pretend that I do like something I don't. But yeah, no, I did. There were moments where it felt like I just could not. To Jack's thing, it was like a trying to understand what it is that people are responding to in it, because I know that they are, and I know that feeling is genuine, and I think it's great. But I just I can't get there myself, and I try, and I can't get the angle on it. So yeah, that unfortunately, such is life.
And with every one of these conversations, if you liked something and we didn't, we are very happy for you. There's no we are not telling you not to like anything. Yeah, exactly. SBS Guru with a €10 dono. Thank you so much, SBS Guru. Adam Project was like all of Ryan Reynolds' non-Deadpool movies, tepid and mediocre. Also, the last upload by The Escapist was a month ago. Do you think they've finally given up? Well, they did. They let go their video team. I don't know if The Escapist what their future video plans are. Wish them the best. But
that's up to them. Absolutely.
Happen over there. Ryan Reynolds. What's your favorite Ryan Reynolds movie? Gun to your head.
A Mississippi Grind.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Sorry, that was a quick off the draw, but Mississippi Grind and Adventureland is probably second.
Oh my God, Adventureland's probably mine. Yeah, where he plays,
I love that I've quartered the two. I'm like, I'm going to quickly move tactically and take the two good ones and put like Marty and Jack in an awkward situation.
I don't know if it's good, but I watched it a bunch on DVD. Smoking Aces.
Oh, that's also fairly decent. No,
Yeah.
Joe Carnahan. Is it a Joe Carnahan?
No,
Yeah,
Smoking Aces is good. Smoking
Okay,
Aces.
good. I haven't seen it in like 15 years, but
That's about all like the
enjoyed it.
hitmen. Like
Yeah, it's got like a
converted to
crazy deep
hotel.
cast, like Jason Bateman, Common, Alicia
No,
Keys.
Smoking Aces is very good. I remember really being
Great
into
Chris
that.
Pine performance. A very weird. He plays like a hillbilly assassin, Chris Pine.
Yeah,
Remember
Smoking
Chris
Aces
Pine
is
used to
great.
do that. Yeah, like
Yeah.
he's also in Wanted as well. He was
Yeah.
on Parks and
Yeah.
Rec. Like, remember when before Chris Pine? No, sorry, no,
No,
Chris
you're thinking
Pratt.
of Chris
Wrong
Pratt.
Chris Pine.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Chris Pine still does that. Good for Chris Pine.
Yeah, he played the little.
my-
Yeah, he was great in Dungeons and Dragons.
He was. My favorite Ryan Reynolds movie is Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place.
Good
He
call. That's a
cheated.
TV show, isn't it?
He
Yeah.
cheated.
Nathan
He
Fillion.
che- if
Who's
you
the
watch them all
girl?
back to Wait,
It was not
Fillion
Nathan
in it?
Fillion.
Is-
He was
no,
he was
okay,
not
sorry.
the other guy, but I believe he had
okay.
a part in it. And not Tia Leone, but someone who was
Ooh.
very similar to Tia Leone.
Mrs.
Oh,
David
no.
Duchovny.
Was it Dharma of Dharma and Greg?
Oh,
It was not Dharma of Dharma and Greg. It was like a tinier Dharma.
Oh, Little Dharma.
It was little.
the initiative from Lost.
The initiative. Namaste. Biscuits and BBQ with a $10 dono. Thank you so much. Here's the mending broken lower limbs. My wife just broke her ankle last week. Oh no, it's going around.
Mine is
totally an
luckily not broken, just very, very sprained.
Yeah. There you go. Everyone will get better. Just
Yeah.
put on ice and elevate it. I don't know how
Elevate.
that works. Proud Hand with $5 Australian dollars. Thank you so much. I might love Picard's season, and I apologize. But how do we get Darren to talk about Star Trek more? I have to know his thoughts on Next Generation, and Deep Space Nine. I feel like Darren has talked about so. First off, go back and watch that one stream with you guys.
Oh yeah,
With us and
Darren,
Nick, yeah.
myself, and Nick playing like the Star Trek strategy game. It was literally
never
just
talking
Darren
about the
and I.
video game. Yeah, never.
I got it here.
It was just us lovingly talking about our favorite Star Trek episodes. The answer is anytime we have space to talk about Next Gen. Perhaps what we can do, we can put like on the back burner. I have not seen more than a handful of episodes of Deep Space Nine, and so perhaps we can do like a whole Deep Space Nine thing because I've heard that's the good one. And I'm probably now, as an adult, ready to take that in. I wasn't ready right after Next Gen because they are very different shows. And as a Next Gen fan going into Deep Space Nine, it's like this isn't super happy, positive time.
My goal.
Why is this entire show a Holocaust metaphor?
Yes, exactly.
A lot of people have always asked, when are we going to get Darren and Yahtzee in a conversation? And one of my, I know the two things you guys overlap on are Trek and Doctor Who. And so I feel like if there's some, like maybe in the fall when I'm going to Japan, we'll see if Yahtzee's schedule comes up and he could just join and you guys could just talk about Star Trek.
Love it.
Fantastic.
Love it. There we go.
And then Pure Pyro, €2 dono. Thank you so much. Final dono. I unironically love the Phantom, Billy Zane.
Yeah.
To quote Jason Mewes in one of the Silent Bob movies, word bitch, Phantom like a motherfucker. I believe that might have been
Affleck is the bomb in Phantoms.
Phantoms, not the
yeah,
Phantom.
Affleck
that
is the
one
bomb
makes
in
more
Phantoms.
sense.
You're the bomb in Phantoms, yo. But I unironically love the Phantom. I think it's a fantastic little time capsule of when they were still figuring out how to do these types of movies.
I also like Billy Zane. I think he's great.
Yeah.
While I'm not a fan of either of those movies, I think it's notable how much of Batman Begins comes from The Shadow. Like if you watch The Shadow and then watch Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins, it's very obvious that Nolan watched The Shadow and was like, this is a terrible movie. Nobody's going to remember it in 5 years. But I think I can use some of it.
Counterpoint, yeah.
Yeah. What if I did all this again, but it was good? And it's like, that is a great strategy. Do that.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then final one, $2. Fungus Finder. Can we use the word autumn instead of fall? I'm probably not going to change. It's probably more accurate, but I'm probably
You're Americans, but no, it's an American thing. So you guys call it the fall, we call it autumn.
No,
yeah. I'm not against the.
It's like pants and trousers. Yeah,
exactly.
Shops and stores.
Lifts and lorries.
No, lifts and elevators.
Oh,
trunks and
yeah.
Trucks and lorries.
That's also the name of my EDM band is called Trunks and Boots. Trunks and boots and trunks and boots and trunks and boots.
That's beautiful. That's great. Guys, we did it. We got to the end of the show. We did it. Jack, what should folks check out in your neck of the woods? Where should folks find you?
One of these days, either Thursday or Friday. I don't know if it'll be with Marty or with someone else. We are going to stream more Elden Ring DLC. That is a thing that is going to happen this week because y'all have been asking for it. You should check out. Let's see here. Tomorrow is Wednesday. We are getting the edited version of Yahtzee Tries up tomorrow in kind of the normal, fully Ramblomatic spot. On Saturday is the season 1 finale of Adventure is Nigh remastered. We're then right up next week, we're season 2 remastered. It's happening. We are working on our Blu-rays of all of the seasons, so you can have physical media in case YouTube decides to implode now that Google has been officially deemed a monopoly. So those are all the things.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Darren, what do you have going on?
Yes, and literally this morning we released a kind of a special episode of The Backdrop just because the Cape Crusader dropped last week and I really enjoyed it. It was I'm really proud of it. It came together over the weekend, did it very quickly. It's one of those things that is like longer than it needs to be because I didn't have as much time to edit as I should have. But I think I'm quite proud of it. I think it turned out relatively well. So please check that out if you are at all interested. Mm-hmm. It's a discussion of the show and what the show does and doesn't do, its relation to previous Batman media, and lots of terrible Batman related puns. So it is something for absolutely everybody in the audience. Other than that, I mean, I do weekly columns here as well. So on Fridays, Sundays, and Mondays, you can catch me. So
that's at the $5 tier, and then every couple of weeks we make one free. We made one this weekend free, a great one. I'm posting right here, so anyone can read this one.
Very
a big
proud of that
long one. Darren went super long on Jonathan Hickman's X-Men run. It was
5 years old this July.
Yeah, and how it really took a lot of really major swings and was like a massively successful kind of reinvention of how to tell an X-Men story that sadly he didn't get to finish, but I do have a feeling, like you said, that in time's going to tell, people are going to look back on this and be like, oh, this was like amazingly influential to a lot of people.
Yeah, same thing that happened with Morrison's, where like the immediate reaction is, what is this trash? Get it out of the way. Can we bring in Chuck Austin and have him fix it? And then gradually over time, like people will slowly worm in references to it. And before you know it, all of a sudden Quentin Quire and Cassandra Nova is appearing in a gigantic like $1 billion summer blockbuster, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? Another thing to plug. I don't know if we have been doing a good job of plugging it. Is I will be at PAX West. Myself and Jesse Galina are doing a panel discussion, dungeon master help desk, where we will help answer all of your dungeon mastering questions on July 1st at 5 p.m. at PAX West.
What?
September 1st.
Next month, not last month.
Sunday, September 1st.
Yeah.
Next month, not last month.
The end of summer, not midsummer. The end of summer.
You got blockbuster fever. That's your problem, Jack.
September 1st at 7 p.m. September 1st at 7 p.m. Jesse Galina and I are doing a panel at PAX West. So we'll also just be at PAX West to check out all of the neat stuff. We're still figuring out how many of us are going as a team, but at very least, Jesse and I will be there to talk about dungeon mastering. So if you're going to PAX West, just say hi.
There you go. Yeah. Easy peasy. Great. Yeah. And then, all the regular stuff from us. No more streams the rest of today. Tomorrow, obviously, you'll have the edited Yahtzee Tries as well as Firelink in the evening. The aforementioned Jesse Galina will be joining Casey and I. Thursday, we'll have the Devil May Cry stream at the normal time, 7 p.m. Central. Friday at 4 p.m. Central, Jamate and Jess Hoops will be possibly wrapping up their Beyond Good and Evil stream. Possibly, maybe this is part 2 of 3, but getting close to it, so tune in for that. And like Jack mentioned, there'll be some Elden Ring one of the days. We'll figure that out. And a new design delve on Friday as well.
Probably Friday, maybe Friday.
Probably Friday, yeah. Because Thursday, I think you're gonna have to get folks to the airport. That's
that's true. That's true.
Everyone's leaving, so yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll try to give people a little bit of notice. But yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in. And again, apologies for going long. We're gonna rein it in at some point. Probably not.
This is how long we're going.
I mean, it is once every other week. So it's like we could do an hour and 15-minute episode every week, or a little bit longer one. Also, we might, in 2 weeks, the episode might be a little earlier because Darren, you have a hard out at a certain point. So we might go an hour earlier, that day, and
then I will
very
literally
least Darren
disappear
will
an
have a
hour
heart
into it. Yes, I will have a hard out.
I think we'll actually have a real hard out because I believe at 1 or 2 p.m. that afternoon is going to be the Gamescom opening night live thing. So we'll figure it out. We'll do something.
We can talk. We'll get them to push that back. It'll be grand.
Really, push it back. Easy peasy. Yeah, that'd be great.
We had the guy from The Expanse on the show. I mean, come on.
That's not this show anymore. That was the old show. That was the old show. That was like 2 shows ago.
Yes.
So for Darren and Jack and Eric behind the scenes, this was Marty. Thank you all so much for tuning into the Rewind episode number 3. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your afternoon/evenings, and we'll see you all next time. Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye.